Merry Christmas. Hope you have happy and healthy time with your family. Please enjoy this Christmas special. Spooky stories and personal experiences, the thread. It's spooky season and we haven't had a good thread to swap personal spoops in a while. Let's fix that. Drop your experiences here. I'll be bumping with some screen caps as well as a few stories I've had saved for a while. To get the ball rolling, I'll share some OC, not mine. So I work a couple of jobs right now, and one of them is at a deli, where I work alongside a 50-year-old Chinese woman, just me and her. She told me this story once during a late shift. Let's call her Rachel. 30 years ago, Hong Kong. Rachel works with her sister in a warehouse. Long, grueling hours. Her sister's husband, Daniel, has some white-collar job. He works long hours too. The three of them live together. Because of work, they rarely have an opportunity to spend time together. But one day, Rachel's home from work early. Her sister's still at the warehouse and Daniel's supposed to be at the office. But as Rachel is doing dishes, she gets a spooky feeling and turns around. Sees Daniel walking out of the kitchen. She never even heard him enter, and he never said hi, which is uncharacteristic of him. She calls out to him. Daniel ignores her, turns a corner, and disappears from view. Rachel dries her hands and follows and sees Daniel is now far down the hallway. She calls again and Daniel continues walking. Turns and enters his bedroom. The whole time Rachel only sees him from behind. Rachel is now annoyed and she rushes into his room to ask him what the hell his problem is. But the room is empty. He searches, thinking he's messing with her, but there's no one there. She searches the rest of the house, but she's alone. Later, she tells her sister what she saw. Sister has seen it too. They decide not to tell Daniel. Occasionally see the double disappearing into some room. Just ignore it. Rachel explained to me, in very broken English, that this sort of thing was considered bad luck to talk about, but it had happened so long ago she didn't care anymore. Winter, 1991, 4 years old. Lived in a rural area in New England, mostly forest. Snowstorm blows in, knocks out power. My father goes out to set up the generator, says it'll be some time before we get heat. My mother put me on a pull-along sled and started walking towards the neighbor's house in the middle of the blizzard since we had no heat. Neighbor has a wood stove, he's 1/3 of a mile down the road. It's pitch black outside except for the faint glow from my mother's flashlight. As we start on the curve, we heard this terrifying sound. Something roared in the woods and it echoed for a few seconds. I had never and still have never heard anything quite like it. It sounded like a bear roaring, but was deeper in pitch, louder, and longer than any bear, deer, or moose I have ever heard. Too deep to be a bobcat or mountain lion. My mother stopped dead in her tracks, screamed, picked me up out of the sled, and ran back to our house as fast as she could. She told my father to get inside, he grabbed his rifle and waited by the door. We heard the noise again, and it sounded like it was in our yard. Nothing after that. I got zero sleep. When the sun came out, we went outside to see how much the blizzard left behind and to recover the sled. As we were walking along the road, something stood out in the otherwise white landscape. 2 bucks were split in half and their innards torn out everywhere. My parents spun me around so I couldn't see. To this day we have no idea what the hell happened or what the creature was. Our neighbor heard the roar too. At this same job, I happened to befriend a different woman who works the morning shifts, Janet. She works 2 jobs as well, and she told me flat out that her other job, a fast food place, is known to be haunted. People see and hear stuff all the time, including phantom sneezes/coughs. Someone sighing deeply. The sound of quick footsteps moving around the back of the kitchen. Janet was especially descriptive about the footsteps. She said they sounded urgent, and sometimes made that squeaking sound that you hear on basketball courts. She also explained that several years back, One of the cooks had actually offed himself. Apparently he found out that his wife had been sleeping with his coworker. Went out and killed himself going 100 miles an hour on the freeway. Now he seems to haunt the place, which is one hell of a fucking afterlife after that terrible tragedy if you ask me. Anyway, that's just a little background for this particular story. At Janet's other job, people alternate closing. Whoever is closing has to stay an extra 30 minutes, and they are there entirely alone. The last thing you do is turn off the lights. This is the worst part of the gig because you can hear footsteps follow you out as you leave. Anyway, on one particular night, Janet is walking out of the office, ready to leave, when she spots a figure in the kitchen. Looks like someone walked behind the oven, someone in a work uniform. But she knows that she's alone, and the place is locked, so nobody could have gotten in. Nervous, she checks everything, but nobody is there. Spooked. She rushes to shut off the lights. Hurries out the door. The footsteps follow her out the whole way. That's it. I found those interesting. Maybe someone else will too.
Fuck it, I'll share a story. I don't have any picture or anything to put as an attention grabber, but since it's a fresh thread, why not? Be me, 3 years old. September, I only remember this since it was my first day of school the next day. Laying in my bed, pretty big bed for my age but it was an old one from my bro. Orange light from streetlights slightly coming in through windowsill. Too spooky, but mostly still awake due to excitement for first day of school. Time is who fucking knows when, just that everyone else was asleep I think. This is where the story gets hard to tell. Not because of something traumatic, but because I literally can barely describe this thing. Something shadowy in substance, like something you would find in a fantasy setting. Almost looked like a stereotypical Grim Reaper bullshit costume, had a hood-like thing above its head but no reaper or sickle or weapon. Comes into view from the light, if it wasn't for that streetlight I would never have seen it. I stay still, can feel my fingers tensing, ready to pull my blanket up over my head to make it go away because toddler logic. Chest tightening and loosening, shivering like I just got out of an icy lake. It stays at the foot of my bed, then moves slowly up to me almost like it wants a better look at my face. We meet each other face to. Nothing since it has no eyes, mouth, etc. just a void like it's from some shitty 2012 creepypasta. Look up the FF7 void face, most accurate representation I can give. It stops looking at me, returns to its spot at the foot of my bed, lowers its head, then disappears. Was raised in a very Christian household. Nothing from any Christian source I can think of describes any sort of demon/angel/whatever like this. It wasn't a sleep paralysis demon either. I've been able to sleep peacefully and deeply basically all my life. Never have had this dream again. I have never felt that fear again. I can only hope that whatever that thing is, it doesn't come back.
Not really spooky, but about an hour ago I saw my first UFO. Was sitting by my fire pit smoking a cigar. I randomly turned my head straight up to blow smoke and saw 40 to 50 extremely fast moving lights moving in a straight line across the sky. Took them about a minute to cross the entire visible sky. If it was one or two I would have said they were planes, but I've never heard of 40 planes flying together, especially in my area.
One of mine was when I was house sitting in an old farmhouse for a family member and was staying there alone a few days. In the bedroom, there was a long staircase that lead up to the attic, but you couldn't see up the steps if you were on the bed because it was separated by a wall that the bed was next to. So you could just only see part of the bottom step poking around the wall. One night I just happened to wake up in the middle of the night for no apparent reason and I was laying on my back. Literally within like a minute of being awake and laying there, the fucking attic stairway light turns on by itself. So suddenly I can see the light coming down from the stairs and shining against the far wall of the bedroom. I just sat there frozen in disbelief, kind of expecting to hear something or someone, but there was just total silence. I reached around the bed and pulled out my phone to start recording the light, and I sat there for a few minutes recording it just in case it turned itself back off. I also checked the time and it was around 3:20 a.m., which was a really unusual time for me to randomly wake up. The light just stayed on, so I had to get up and go up the steps to turn it off.
Every year for my birthday since I turned 27, I decided to venture out to haunted locations around California. Background: I'm a really big skeptic, always think there is some logical explanation to things. Last year for my B-Day I went to Calico, CA, which is a ghost town that had like a silver mine back in the day. If you've ever been to Knott's Berry Farm, Calico is based on a section of the park. Anyways, we did the mine tour at night, which was really cool. The best part of the tour is when the tour guide moves down towards the entrance and asked our group to walk over back without any light on. That was awesome. We also did the town tour. The paranormal stuff happened here, where I believe it was like a main building where apparently the ghost doesn't like men around the area. Me and my cousin stepped away from the tour group towards the side, and my cousin took a picture of me standing on the porch of the building. Lo and behold, we heard 2 or 3 distinct, heavy footsteps walking towards me. Again, could just be creaks from how old the porch is, etc., but that was neat. The last thing before we left is we think we captured the picture of a kid. It could be a case of pareidolia, but what do you guys think? Picture is posted below.
Be me. Southeast Asian. Work at McDonald's in my town for a while. Night shift. In time, notice the regulars eating on a nightly basis. Notice a regular. Muscular dude. Has a well-kept beard and mustache. Has slight Indian looks. Not unusual since Terry's international students in the uni in my town. Only thing is he doesn't look like a student. Dresses a suit every time he goes to order. Like a real well-kept suit. Town isn't that big, and Terry's no such thing as big office skyscrapers or buildings that has that kind of attire. Notice he always order the exact same order for the last 4 months. 1 piece of chicken with rice and a chicken sandwich, plus 1 large Coke McFloat with the one with ice cream sundae. On the Coke drink, McDonald's menu is different in my country. Always just stare at one direction and never blinking. Eats like a statue or a goddamn Agent 47 kind of atmosphere. After eating just stands up for 30 seconds and looks at the whole McDonald's and then leaves. Just walks, no car, didn't take any bus. Can't follow him cause I got my shift. Fast forward to another 3 months. Usual routine. One day he goes to McDonald's all raggedy like Hess, a homeless person. Like dirty clothes straight out from a mechanic fixing a car. Hair too long, like off the shoulders. Note that he always had short, well-kept hair all this time up to this point. Didn't even know how he got his hair too long in the span of one night, cause previous night he was the same. He orders the exact same food. Same manners. What he looked is the only difference tonight. After eating he does the same routine to look at whole McDonald's. Then suddenly looks at me for more than a minute. Noticed his eyes looks weird. Can't explain it, but it's that uncanny valley feeling. Leaves the McDonald's. Never see him again. Start some small talk to my co-worker that's always with me since I got the job. Says he didn't notice him too much. Never see him again. Tried to search on any accidents that might happen and might be related. Nothing. Dude never went back to McDonald's ever again. Did I notice an NPC?
Be me. 2020. COVID lockdown. Didn't give a shit and went to my friend's house. Sort of a mini reunion. Friend asked if we can go fishing in their boat again, just like old times. Invite more longtime friends. Our town has a bay area accessible by the river. Used to do this with their parents, to go fishing near the bay and have some fun during our teens. Our friends decide to do that again. Other friends are experienced fishermen. They grew up poor at the town and taught fishing by their parents to make a living. Me and my other one friend are the only ones that didn't really know how to set up their boats, go near the bay. Kinda happy with the mini reunion. Didn't catch much, but we got our fair share to go home with and cook while in the lockdown. Suddenly noticed something big surfacing in the horizon. Like more than 1,000 meters in. Thought it's gonna be my first cryptid moment. It isn't a cryptid. It's a whole submarine. Friends start to notice too and was mesmerized by it. Thought to myself, that ain't right. We don't even have a sub in my country. Whose sub is this? After a few minutes notice it submerging again into the water. Gone in a matter of minutes. Stayed there for an hour talking about what we saw and hoping it resurfaces again. Never resurfaces again. Went back home and cooked our catch and shot the shit. Kept searching if Therese any joint operation exercises or anything related in the Navy. In my country, none. Bay Area is really big but secluded, like you have to enter an entrance to enter the bay. Realize our country's Navy isn't that capable enough, but it sure as hell can detect submarines within the vicinity. Bay Area's big and the country's capital is literally beside it on the other side. It's been 3 years, but I'm still wondering what was that sub doing deep in our country's territory.
I've got one. This happened to me back in 2014, at a hotel/apartment complex in Alabama when I was 17. I was feeling kinda lonely, so I went on Omegle to find people to chat with. Ended up meeting this chick on there and we got along, so she gave me her name on Kik and we continued chatting over there. Her name was Kat if I remember correctly. After talking for a few days, she eventually tells me that she has ghosts and negative spirits around her. Initially I was thinking she was just trying to be edgy, because she was gothic and into spooky stuff. Until she started sending me videos. In her videos you could see shadow people darting around her house, manifesting a couple of feet in front of her camera, crazy shit like that. Kinda creeped out and told her as much, telling her I hope they go away and stuff like that. That night after she sent me those videos, I started hear something crinkling the plastic shower curtain in the bathroom. Started out lightly, so didn't think too much of it at first, but it would progressively get louder and faster over the course of a few minutes, until it would just stop. Be quiet for an hour or two, then start back up again. Got pretty intense at times. I also would get a really strong feeling of being watched all night. I had been there for about a week before I started talking to her, and never heard that happen at night until she sent me those videos. Pretty freaked out at this point, but continued to talk to her. And over the next couple of days as I stayed in contact with her, it would keep happening at night. Then after like 4 or 5 days I was just too freaked out, thinking this is happening because of all the shit attached to her, is now attached to me. I broke off contact with her, deleted Kik, and never went back. When I did the noises at night and feeling of being watched stopped immediately. I kind of wished I saved the videos she sent. But I'm also kind of glad I didn't. I don't know if weird stuff would continue if I did.
I've shared this one several times, and nobody ever seems to care, but I like this story. The girl who shared it with me told the entire thing in such a nonchalant manner, like it was utterly normal lol. She said it was her only experience like this, but that she thought it was normal at the time. Her name is Anna. Anna is a child, only about 7 or so. After parents' divorce, she and mom move into a house by themselves. Almost immediately, weird stuff starts to happen. Seeing shadows, hearing strange sounds, nothing major. Until Anna is taking a nap one day in her mother's bed. But she wakes up and finds that the bed is moving. She cries for her mother, who comes into the room and finds the bed shaking violently. Lifts Anna off the bed and the two leave the house. Call Anna's mom's sister, who says she can stay with them. After that, Anna saw the Hat Man a few times. This is especially striking because when she actually told me this, she didn't actually appear to know about the Hat Man. She didn't even use that term, but she described it as a tall black shadow that looked like a man wearing a big sombrero, The Hat Man would appear randomly. Usually he would be at a window looking into the house. Anna once looked out a window and saw the Hat Man standing across the street watching the house. Her mother saw it several times too. The experiences culminated in Anna seeing the Hat Man on the landing to the second story. She approached him, and then felt the shadow pull her and shove her down the stairs. Her mother happened to be ascending at that moment and witnessed the entire thing. Caught Anna as she fell. The two ran out of the house and it was decided they'd move out. The Hat Man followed them across several houses apparently, but never did anything like that again. One more story before work gets busy. This one comes from a pal who worked at a munitions facility. The place was apparently haunted, and he shared his most intense experience with me. To get started, let's pull directly from my notes, yes, I have notes, and quote some of what this guy actually said. I've seen disembodied legs walking around the facility. Heard all sorts of noises. Seen full shadow people in my direct line of sight. These shadows seem to absorb surrounding light like a black hole. With that said, here's his story, as he told it to me, starting from the beginning. So I was working at a munitions facility for the government. Lots of people have died there. If you worked there and didn't have a sighting of some sort, then you were the odd one out. One night me and my work friend were upstairs loading the propellant extruder with a billet of powder. We usually have it timed to a T so that we're both finished and walking out of the charging bay at the same time. Friend cleans the ring off while I drop the billet in. Easy money. But then we both turn at the same time to look behind us and find a man standing there. Wearing a white set of coveralls. His face looks sunken in. Just as soon as he was there, he was gone. The actual sight of him left me feeling almost sick. I looked at my friend and he looked sick too. We both actually wasted a few charging cycles recovering from this. I felt like someone had punched me in the gut. Finally, we both went to clean up and quit for the night. Decided we'd tell the supervisor what happened since we had to explain our production numbers. The super had been there for 30 years. When I described the guy we had seen, he told us he knew that guy. He died in an accident in Bay 3 about 17 or 18 years before. I asked this buddy of mine if he could give the name of the company. He said it used to be called Hercules, but it's since changed hands a few times and has a different name now.
B16. Downloading porn off LimeWire. Watch porn vid. Has that story of a girl song, this is just on the off chance this is a real video anyone has heard of to jog their memory, and God I hope it does. It's a compilation. As the video continues, the actors look more and more diseased. Eventually a woman's vagina grows to encompass her entire ass. At that point I noped the fuck out of LW. If it was a message from God I didn't heed it, as I became porn addicted a few years later. This one's not particularly spooky or long, but something that has stuck with me since my childhood. Not a great writer either, but thought I'd contribute. Be me, 4 years old or something, 2002-ish. Live in big Queenslander-style house, raised on stilts, with 5 bedrooms, in a nice neighborhood. Used to share a room with my little brother, and had just moved into a new bedroom on my own. Every couple of nights, a while after my mum had put me to bed, I would see a silhouette of a man in my doorway. Barely visible, but massive man, basically as tall as the doorframe and nearly as wide. Thought it was my dad at first, but it was way too big to be him. Couldn't move, blink, or look away. Could have been nerves, but I was frozen. The man never moved either. Sometimes he would be there for what felt like hours. Never saw him walk up and never saw him leave. Just stood there, frozen, staring at me. Few weeks of this go by and my house was robbed. Never see man again. This all could have easily been my overactive imagination, but thinking back I wonder if this man was living in our house somewhere. It would have been hard to break into quietly, and I don't know why someone would case a house so many times just to rob some jewelry.
This isn't really a story, but I have now, of yesterday, seen the white misty silhouette of a man twice in my apartment. First it was at night. Before falling asleep I was talking to my girlfriend. I turned and saw him standing at the side of the bed, facing towards me. The second time was yesterday. In the middle of the day, it was daylight although the curtains were drawn. I walked into the living room. My girlfriend was napping on the couch and the figure was standing with its back to the window, facing towards the opposite wall. I promptly looked away. When I looked back he'd disappeared. I'm pretty sure it's the same figure. But I didn't get a good look. I'm pretty spooked. Does anyone have any ideas what this could be and, if so, what I could do to get rid of it?
I've got a bit of a weird one. Hang around this place to smoke weed, pick related for ease. It's quite secluded, about 40 feet from the main road and footpath. Meet friend there every morning before we go to college. In the autumn and winter we get access to this small one-room building, in red. Other than that we'll sit on the path or grass, gray and green. To get to the building you have to go through 3 massive padlocked gates or climb a spiked fence that's about 10 feet high. We climb the fence because no padlock key. Sometimes we'll hang around outside of the building, still climbing the fence, because it's more secluded than the grass and path. At the back of it is Piss Lane, yellow, where everyone who needs a piss takes a piss. Go there one morning with friend. Have bong hidden just inside Piss Lane. I'm not getting high before college, so I wait on the outside of the fence. He climbs over and gets bong. Sits outside of building. Says he's going to take a piss first. Goes back to Piss Lane. Comes back minute late looking a bit confused. Looks back up Piss Lane. Sprints to fence and climbs over it. Ask him what he's doing. Says there's a man there. Tell him to get fucked. Man, dressed like a legit businessman with a briefcase and everything, in his 50s, comes around the corner looking just as confused as friend. Opens his mouth like he's going to say something. Doesn't. Walks back into Piss Lane. Wait a couple of minutes. Nothing happening. Both climb fence to take a look. He's not there. But the back of the building is solid brick and the spiked fence encompasses Piss Lane. There's nowhere to go and it's just a straight path about 10 feet long and 3 feet wide. Friend didn't see him when he got the bong or had a piss, which it would be impossible to miss if someone was there. Unlikely someone like that is going to climb a fence when there's no reason to. Never explain how he got in, where he even came from, or where the fuck he went. It's a spooky place, brothers.
I have some boring stuff I can post and have posted before. I'm bored at work RN anyway. My workplace is haunted AF. It's an old facility, over a century. No big stories of my own, just small things, but the coworkers who have been here for decades have seen some shit, much of which they'll only briefly discuss if you press them hard enough. A few on-the-job deaths, heart attacks, etc., one murder. Brand new machinery and equipment breaks without reason. Nothing ever works right for the duration of its life. Everyone who's worked nights knows the safe nights are when the animals are around. Deer, skunks, raccoons, anything. They're not around when the spooks are. Motherfucking motion sensor lights in some halls. They turn on their own, in order, like someone's walking through even though it's abandoned at night aside from 2 night shifters. Founder of facility comes around, everyone knows his face and he's included in the annual safety PowerPoint like a workplace meme. Find his wet shoe prints occasionally, we have constant wet spots in basement. Murdered woman is very peaceful when she's around. Random ice spots in basement, which is huge, half the facility, they will literally come stand on you and make you freeze even in summer. Like, you move a few inches over and you're warm again until they step in you again. More active in winter. One picked up my pen, followed me, and dropped it at my feet once. 1/more seemed aggressive, but they fucked off when L got aggressive back. Sourceless whistling in the basement and other buildings. Even after hours when no one's around. It's a meme even among the day shift. Sorry about the fucked up line breaks. There's a night shift guy who talks to them, was the first who told me to say hi to, founder, when motion sensor lights started clicking on outside the office one night. My stupid ass just looking out the window thinking I missed whoever walked by. He even formally introduced me later like this is Anon. He's very nice, he's going to be working here, and I'm like, he's having a conversation with himself? Aside from the whistling, there is whispering occasionally in certain areas. Can never quite make out what's being said. They seem to like music. River around back was a dump point for bodies for the local mob. Old guys who grew up here found bodies all the time as kids. I still see mob guys meeting on the other side of the fence sometime at dusk. They always glare at me for seeing them, but they're on my workplace property. I'm just minding my own business. At Offsite Woods location once saw what L described to coworkers as a large coyote with mange. We don't have wolves, but L think it was a hellhound because it was huge and had the wrong build. I've seen coyotes before and this wasn't one. Drove down a well-known haunted road, one didn't know, and had a phantom truck riding my ass until L reached another car. Also, writing all this at 2 a.m. Machine comm failure. Run across facility. Plug is out. This is not just a plug, these things screw in. Founder unscrewed plug to fuck with me. Guess he doesn't like me writing about him. Fuck you, go to sleep. Boss is talking about hijinks from when he was a kid. Stoner coworker too. Moves from childhood memories to workplace events such as dead workers found here. Stops mid-thought to just say when the animals are around, you know it's safe. Stoner concurs. I came to the same conclusion 2 years ago. They're normies, so WTF have they seen that caused them to notice? Founder's ghost. Ancient facility, creepy underground tunnels. Been here a few years, start picking up nights last summer. Start noticing my fight or flight response is triggered in certain room, then spreads to a tunnel. Never anyone there. JPG. Start dreading nights because what I must assume is a ghost is giving me aggressive vibes when I'm trapped in the room with him. Department training a few months down the line. PowerPoint slideshow. Here is a pic of founder.jpg and founder2.jpg. JFC Founder 2 is the one giving me heebie-jeebies, can tell just from seeing his pic. Bunch of coworkers start laughing suddenly, I guess they've met him too. Next time he shows up. Hell no, I know who you are, I want to run this place someday and I want your blessing. Perplexed vibes, just leaves instead of haunting me. Comes back next night, unaggressive for once, try talking to him. Motherfucker picks up my metal pen, carries it several feet, drops it behind me on the concrete, crazy loud noise. Heart attack. He scraped my fucking nice pen, yell at him not to damage my things. That's really it for the founder. He likes to fuck with me like with the pen, but he's not really aggressive anymore. Aside from that, he occasionally taps/clangs the pipes. We have motion sensor lights everywhere too, so when he's wandering the halls he turns them on. He did jump scare me not long ago, but I don't think he meant to.
When I was about 11 or 12, I was tossing and turning trying to fall asleep. I heard in the distance my name being called. I ignored it and convinced myself it was my imagination. A few seconds later I felt whatever was calling my name scream into my ear. Frank. I freaked the fuck out and called for my parents. They calmed me down and told me to go sleep with my older sister. Still very shook up and crying, my sister was attempting to calm me down. I started to wind down after saying a few Hail Marys until I then heard my name being called again. This time my sister heard it as well. We were both beyond spooked and just kept the light on for the rest of the night. I wasn't able to sleep alone for months after this traumatizing experience and still think about it pretty frequently in my adult life. Who the fuck knows what was calling me, and thank God I did not answer.
I've posted this a few times before. Early 2022. Living in Southern Maryland. Wife and 6-month-old son visiting her family in Texas. Alone with the dog for a week and a half. Have a nightmare one night where I'm in my backyard. Approached by a ghost, young, spectral woman, in between the shed and the deck. Try to run back inside, can't open the door, she gets closer, etc. My dog wakes me up, I figure she has to go outside, it's about 2 a.m. As we're walking downstairs to the backyard, think about how realistic the backyard was in my dream. Usually things are misplaced/misrepresented in dreams, but the backyard in that nightmare was true to life. Open door, go outside with dog. Dog runs to the spot where the ghost appeared in the dream and growls at the spot. Stand there confused for a moment and let her growl. Decide it's best to go back inside, we go back upstairs and go to sleep. Only paranormal type experience I've ever had. I don't really believe in cryptids or ghosts or anything, although I do like to read about them, but I'm convinced my dog was protecting me from some malevolent energy.
Florida Anon here. Had many strange experiences in my life. I get told I attract these sorts of things, but I digress. I'm bored, so here's the story my friends and I haven't been able to forget for the past year. Be me. Be in Apalachicola National Forest in January for a camping trip with my brother. Technically not supposed to be there because it's hunting season and we're prim campers not staying in one of the designated hunter campsites, but whatever, do it anyway. We keep thinking we see brief flashes of blue light in woods on and off. Try to ignore it. Just our minds playing tricks on us, etc. Third day. Friend and his GF join us. They bring mushrooms, now the real party begins. Cut to night. Everyone takes a small dose of mushrooms, 2 grams per person. Friend throws up after taking only half a gram, stays sober. Fast forward. We're all decently high but still lucid. Sitting by the fire. Friend's GF crawls out of their tent, looks off in the distance. What's that light off in the woods? There's some planes visible, so I tell her she's probably just tripping. Brother gets up from his hammock. I see it too, WTF. Look where they're looking but don't see anything, just chalk it up to them being new to shrooms. Go back to staring into the fire, BC primal monkey brain. Friend, who, reminder, is sober, stands up and peers into the darkness in front of me. Holy shit, there really is a light out there. What? Get up, sure as shit, there's a blue ball of light floating between the trees and circling our camp. Forest is dead quiet. It's so bright it's illuminating trees around it slightly. Irregular flight pattern, floats like you'd imagine a fairy would, wavering in the air. Not even close to firefly season, not to mention its /blue/and orb/. We watch it for a few minutes, seems like it's getting closer. Brother lights up his emergency cigar, wafts the smoke, old native trick for spirits. I say a prayer. Light vanishes for a good 20 minutes, light reappears, then wavers in place for a bit near our camp and floats off, disappearing into the trees. Freaked out, stay up all night. Month or 2 later. Now/it's about firefly season. Friend calls me up for an impromptu camp out in Ocala, NF. Uneventful day other than the ticks, oh god the ticks. Night, maybe around 2 to 3. Have a few shitty bottles, margaritas and bullshit by the fire. Conversation slows down since we're both tired. An owl hoots, then friend says, yo. What's up? I see the light again. Joking look around, tons of them, smaller than the last one, but all blue orbs of light literally surrounding our campsite. Had to be about 50. They are literally nowhere else in the forest except near us. Friend and I shit bricks for a moment. Catch a close-up of one. Not fireflies. An actual floating ball of blue fire the size of a golf ball. Weird feeling they're non-threatening, like they're protecting us. Just to be sure we're not crazy, light up a cigar and pray to see if it does anything. I shit you not, all of them instantly blink out of existence until I put out the cigar. Afterward they just kind of float around and then slowly leave one by one. Rest oddly peacefully the rest of the night. Not really super spooky, but paranormal and strange nonetheless. I have scarier ones, but this is the most recent encounter I've had, so I thought I'd share it. No idea what they are, but if anyone has any insight I'd be very interested.
Great story, Anon. The obvious explanation would be that it was something Fae related. Honestly, I wouldn't try to dispel these things in the future. I'd try and communicate with them. They might just be friendly forest spirits. INB for their demons. Get bent Christcucks, there is actually a difference between a purely malevolent spirit and a neutral or curious one. The latter tend to stick to natural areas and imbue the entire region with a sense of peace and beauty.
Thanks, Anon. Actually did some research last night after I posted and found something from Japanese urban legends called onibi, which are pretty accurate to what I saw, pic related. Also yeah, after that experience I've been making an effort to be more respectful to any potential spirits. At the time I was just skeptical about whether or not they were, indeed, spirits.
That's pretty cool, and awesome that you had a bunch of people with you not just for safety but for sanity that it actually happened. Wisps are something that I actively wish I had more interactions with, but they either avoid me or just don't show up in my area. They seem pretty harmless at worst, so not a bad side of the paranormal to experience.
Thanks, man. And yeah, very glad to have others there to corroborate the story, because otherwise I would have thought I was just going schizo lamau. Here's a quick rundown of some other stuff I've experienced while I'm at it. I'll elaborate on any of them if anyone wants to hear more. Childhood home in South Florida that was plagued with whispers and apparitions. Another house in Central Florida that I had some really freaky skinwalker-esque nightmares and among other stuff. The time I moved to a new town and had multiple people tell me they already knew me yet refused to elaborate. The time my ex-GF and I shared a weird demonic nightmare and then I expelled what I believed to be an actual demon. And I'm sure there's more I'm forgetting, but those are the big things I remember. LMK if anyone wants to hear any of them.
Post 'em Anon.
I'd fair enough. I'll post the last one I mentioned since it's the most recent of them. Be me last September. Just got back from a trip to Georgia with the GF. Staying at GF's parents' place because they're there in another country and they wanted us to watch the house. GF has been complaining of stuff moving around, her dog barking at random corners of the house, etc. GF and I are lying in bed drifting asleep. Not really tired, but I close my eyes. Prone to hypnagogic imagery and hallucinations, albeit rarely. Tonight, I'm seeing all sorts of weird shit, like dragons, demons, and really big tropical flowers shifting around like I'm tripping balls. Get a really bad feeling watching it, like a pit forms in my stomach. Stay like that for a while until GF whispers. Anon? Yeah? I just had a really scary nightmare. What was it about? There were, like, demon faces, and dragons. And like, flowers. What? JPEG. What the fuck, really? Yeah. GF then stares off toward the closet and says that she feels a presence. I felt it too, but I reassured her it was nothing to make her feel better. GF turns on the light and walks to the bathroom. While she's in there, I recite a prayer and basically tell the demon to quite literally get the fuck out. You're not fucking welcome here, etc. As I finish up, I see a faint round ball of light, not really light but the closest word I can think of to describe it. About the size of a basketball fly through the wall from one end of the room and then out of the window. GF comes back into the room as I'm sitting there in disbelief. Did you see something, Anon? Nope. Nothing. Let's go back to bed. I saged the house a week later. No demonic bullshit since. Here's the third one too while I'm at it. Be me in 2016. In high school. Just moved to a new relatively small town to go to a better school. Hanging out with GF of the time and her friend downtown. Walk by a restaurant with outdoor seating, GF is rushing me to show me something. Feel a hand tug on my shirt. Stop, see a woman in her late 20s/early 30s with sunglasses on sitting alone at one of the outdoor tables. Your first name, right? Why yeah, why? First and last name. Pants currently being shit. Wave how do you? Do I know you? Don't think so. Then how do you I don't know. GF and her friend start rushing me more. I'm so confused. Lucky guess, she says. Forced by GF to walk away and never see the woman again. Couple months later teacher comes up to me in the halls. Keep in mind, this is my first year in this town. Oh hey. You're that kid who's on the wall in the office meeting room. Huh? Yeah, your first name, right? What yeah, but I never got my picture taken? Why would you guys have my picture up? Oh. Must have been mistaken. Walks away without another word. Literally never see her again.
This Friday. Make Black Mirror. It's too bright outside, my room doesn't get dark enough. Go visit friends, smoke a shit ton of pot and stay awake to the point I am sleep deprived. Now is the perfect time to go scrying Lamau. Sit in front of the mirror and light the candle. Look into that shit. Oh hey, that looks like a giant, mega wide face right behind me. It even had two light spots that looked like eyes where the candle got reflected by something. One eye closes. Tilt and move head to make the reflection reappear. It doesn't, the face becoming more distinct. That's when I turned on the light and covered the scrying mirror and went to bed. I don't know what the hell winked at me, but it was scary.
The ghost hunting event at the local library. Organizers pass out EMF meters. Hang out near the back of the group watching my meter. Focus on projecting the feeling of hey, I'm kinda nervous around all these people, so if you're nervous too you can come hang out next to me. Meter starts to hover around high yellows. Keep that to myself. Session concludes and group moves to other side of library. Get comfy over there, set out the meter and focus on projecting that same feeling of safe harbor. Meter goes to deep red and stays there nearly 2 minutes. Somebody finally notices and says hey, his meter is really lighting up over there. And all eyes are on me. Stage fright. Move, feel whatever ability to project a feeling immediately clam up, meter goes all the way down and never spikes again. Be my mother, early teens, late 1970s. Dream of walking down a riverbank. See two people fishing on the other side of the river, one nudges the other and they both watch you stroll along. Wake up and walk down to the kitchen. Sisters are eating breakfast and looking at you funny. Finally ask if you left the house last night because they saw somebody that looked like you walking on the opposite bank while they were out fishing.
Anyone here has experienced anything similar? Every once in a while I'd wake up in the middle of the night feeling like my position on the bed was shifted. I'm not exactly sure how, but my body would just tell me that I had changed position on the bed, or rather, the bed changed positions. I wake up feeling like I made a full 180 shift on the bed, my head being where my foot was originally at, etc. Usually the moment I open my eyes, I see and feel myself back in the correct position. But sometimes, I would get this very strong irrational fear of opening my eyes, and the 2 times when I did get the guts to open my eyes at this time. First time, was indeed rotated 180 on the bed, curtain drapes wide open, I usually close them, literal person standing between me and window, didn't see so clearly and somehow just feel back to sleep. Second time, was rotated 90 degrees on the bed, opened eyes to face the wall, clearly seeing a demonic face staring right at me, probably womanish cause of the long hair. Pussied out and did the classic close her eyes and hide under the blanket, somehow fell asleep after that. I haven't dared to open my eyes since. Of the two, the second one felt way more real and I remember how scared I was then. I thought they could possibly just be nightmares that I mistook for reality, but it's a weird experience that sometimes returns.
Can we post ones that aren't paranormal, but are still spooky? 15. Go to grandmother's one day to do some gardening. On the way see this old woman in her 80s trying to cut ivy above her front door with garden shears. Can't reach and can barely hold the shears. Tell her if she can hold on a couple of hours I'll do it for her on the way back. Suspicious and I don't have the most welcoming face. Asks me if my dad's called Billy. He is. Not surprised she knew because me and him really look alike and complete strangers who know him have stopped me in the street to ask if he's my dad. Once I confirm it she seems much more comfortable and accepts my offer. Go back couple of hours later. Only takes about 10 minutes to do everything. Let her know I'm finished and I'm heading home. But she's made me a cup of tea. British people love tea. Explain my parents are waiting for me and I have to get back. It's only a quick cup of tea. Feel sorry for her because maybe she has no company. Except on the condition I can call my parents and let them know I'm going to be late. She agrees but insists she call them because she hasn't spoke to my mum for ages and I can drink my tea. Seems fair. Give her the number. She makes the call and starts conversation with my mum. Sitting in living room waiting for tea to cool. Glance around like you do in new places. Phone is on a little table just outside living room opposite where I am. Notice something. Excuse me. Who you talking to? Phone doesn't even have a wire on it to plug in anywhere. Gives me the most menacing look and hangs up. Fuck this. Barge my way out while she keeps apologizing and telling me I haven't finished my tea. Nah, fuck that. Get home. Tell parents about it. Dad asks if she's called Doris. She is. Turns out she poisoned her parents and brother, didn't die, and was in some nut place for years. Had a real vendetta against my dad because my dad beat her son up when they were like 8. Who knows what was in the T brothers.
Be me, 11 years old, summer. Visit grandparents in Oregon. Go on hunting/camping trip with dad and granddad. In a woods.mp4. Typical camping trip for the first 2 days. On third day while walking looking for animals get feeling of being watched. That night we do the usual. Build fire. Grill sausages on fire. Eat and chat for a bit. Still feel like I'm being watched but don't mention it. After some time we decide to go to bed. We have 2 tents, one with me and dad and one with grandpa. After some time get waken up to sound of grandpa calling my name. Don't wake up dad for some reason. Get flashlight and go out. Don't know how much time I had slept but the fire was completely out with no embers. Walk in direction of grandfather's voice while calling him. After a few minutes of walking my grandpa and dad come up behind me asking why I'm calling for grandpa. Tell them I heard grandpa calling for me. They tell me they were both asleep. What.png. While walking back we all hear my granddad's voice from behind us call my name. Now we're very spooked because grandpa was walking in front of us. We quickly walk to the campsite after that and pack up to leave. Still hear grandpa's voice while packing and walking to the car. We drive back to my grandparent house. During the drive dad and grandpa are both silent. The sun is rising when we reach. We go to bed. Ask my granddad about it after waking up and he tells me it's best not to bring it up. Can tell by his voice he's serious. It's been 15 years since then. Granddad died 4 years ago.
Sick AF. Stuck working a double. Have to go down to the hell room, as I call it, where he and the aggressive spirits seem to be most active. Grab the object I need. Need a minute to just rest my head. BC wiped and in pain, rested against the handrail. Eyes open, staring at floor, waiting for headache to quiet. Suddenly big man in a brown tweed suit two to my right, barely in view. Jump back, almost yell, look up at him just as he pops back to his own plane of existence. Founder.jpg. Who looks like a mean, cold, six towering Hank Schrader BTW since posting a pic would dox my workplace. Feel bad, he clearly didn't mean to scare the shit out of me. Fuck, there goes my 15-year streak of no jumping from scares. Damn, they don't make suits that nice anymore. I really don't share often, usually just around Halloween because I know skeptics and zoomies stop by, so it's nice to hear that someone remembers my insanely mundane encounters. I actually do have a few more green texts that I intend to drop after I've caught up on the rest of the thread.
About 14. Chilling with friend. We're casually talking. Suddenly I get hit with this intense and confusing feeling. I say wait. About 15 seconds later I said now. And then the phone rang instantly. Don't know what that was about.
The dead woman. Facility is not just old, but state-of-the-art. High-profile murder in broad daylight about 15 years ago, all over the news. BC of our prestige. Police can't figure out who did it, company pays hush money, it's declared an accident. Strange, the ghost that haunts this place is a man and not the murdered woman. Have been paying attention to footprints left in the tunnels since noticing Founder's footprints. Old cracks and leaks in tunnels equals constant, unavoidable puddles/streams. Founder wears gentlemanly, two-part smooth-soled dress shoes common to his era, size between my shoe size and coworkers. Until one night. Two fresh, short steps leading out of a puddle/stream, simply end right there. Small but long, way narrower, smooth one-part sole. Me and other coworker wear safety boots. Big, wide, grippy teeth patterns on underside. This is a woman's slipper/flat. No women have been here in 8+ hours, and they all wear safety boots too. Stare at it, compare my boot, steps it takes my boots to dry out from that level of saturation, action splashes from forward movement she has none, like she just plopped her feet down vertically. She hasn't walked through any of the other unavoidable puddles before that point. Just two prints in the middle of a wet room, no entry or exit path. Stare longer, burning the proof she's there into my memory. Decide not to take a pic to show others. BC don't want to anger her. Later that night, major machinery failure. Pretty sure she knew something was wrong and was trying to fix it. Don't run into her often, but she has a peaceful vibe.
Talking to someone who stayed late after hours. Just chatting in the hallway. Something catches my attention across hall on other side of stairwell. Just an old man, about my height, black hoodie and sweatpants, watching us talk with a grave expression. Can't help smiling because I know the person I'm talking to has no idea. Stays there almost a minute, can tell coworker is getting confused because I'm distracted by nothing. Can tell the old man is kind of like someone sees me, but still looks serious. Try to wrap up conversation so I can try to talk to him. He disappears as the coworker turns to leave. Pretty sure he's a guy that dropped on the job from a heart attack. He wasn't found for a few hours, and when someone finally found him, they accused him of sleeping on the floor on the job and walked away instead of calling for help. Linkian, but typical for my company.
Christmas time. 24/7 operation, someone always has to be here. I'm today's sucker. Again, just me and a coworker. Coworker is out patrolling the facility in another building. Board.jpg, Might as well go analyze data in the next room. Crunching numbers, 5-10 minutes go by. Hear someone talking. Coworker must be back. Keep working. Hear laughter, raising and lowering volumes. Someone's having a damn good time. WTF, he never sounds that happy. Realize one section of motion lights never flicked on when he must have passed by. Get that, oh, feeling because it's not the first time. Start walking down hallway following voices. All the lights are on around and in the break room, can distinctly hear 3+ voices laughing and talking. It sounds like a whole party. I'm moving so slow, I kind of understand how horror movie characters feel now. Approach the room window. Can hear them, they're not more than 5 away. Peer in, not sure what I'm expecting. Room empty, all the lights on. The instant I look, all noise and voices stop. Just standing in the hall in dead silence alone. Kind of glad I couldn't see anything, kind of disappointed. Feel like I ruined their Christmas reunion/party. Fucked frame of mind for the rest of the night. Coworker this shift is in hard denial of everything, can't even ask if he's experienced similar, day or two before solstice. Shift ends, out just after dark. Fuck, forgot to move car closer. Have to walk like 200 yards across dark empty lot with only one street light, right over my car like a damn movie. Step off curb into the lot. Loud whistling suddenly starts up from rocky fenced in cliff along the side of the lot. Look around, no motion detected. Sheer fear hits like I'm in the hell room when the dwellers are angry. Hell no, I don't let bodiless mfers intimidate me. Whistler keeps bellowing out cheerful tune across the lot. Pocket knife in hand in case it's a hobo, keep walking steadily and ignore fear. Whistling is now all around me, sourceless, like it's coming from several directions at once. Honestly a lovely song, nothing I recognize, too complicated to memorize, but this bastard literally doesn't need to come up for air either, so any hope it's a human is gone. Oh god, oh fuck, I'm never leaving the building alone again after dark. Why am I walking cautiously? Nothing's moving, it's like I'm trying to drag this out. Eventually make it to car, lock the doors, furtively look around lot for any hint of who or what. Can still hear whistling through car, not sure what I expected but not feeling reassured. RN. Drive back to building front, sprint back in to punch out. Whistling follows me until I'm through the door. Safe, chill, wait around a few minutes to see if coworker will show up so I don't have to go back out alone, maybe he's witnessed this before. He doesn't show up, he's bullshitting with our relief. Fuck it, venture back out. Completely silent. No whistling. No movement. No fear in the air. Check car backseat and book it out of there. I've heard disembodied whistling in the hallways on rare occasions, but never like that or outside the buildings. Was tweaked the rest of the week when outside or near the area.
Right around spring 2000. I know because I was in bed, reading the 4th Harry Potter book like a dork, well past my bedtime, in early middle school. My room was at the end of the hall, the door right across from my parents' room with the bathroom door and my brother's just a bit out of sight down the hallway, maybe 2 a.m. on a school night. I was super determined to finish the chapter I was reading before I fell asleep, but I had that nagging must make PP situation going on. I had a tall standing lamp in my room, but not the click-click kind or any sort of remote. It had a wired slider that rested on the floor, slidable from full brightness to dim or off. While in the off state it had a little orange light to help you locate it in the dark with your foot. I had the light on near max while I was reading. My parents were in their room for some time, and they didn't mind me staying up late, so I didn't care. That nagging feeling was getting bad and I decided to earmark my page and rush to the restroom, but at the very moment I closed the book in bed my light dimmed about 20%. I waited a moment for it to come back. It did that sort of thing often when the AC kicked on. But it didn't. The curiosity of it kind of struck me, and for just a moment I forgot I had to go, so, instead, still in bed, I opened the book up again, and read until the end of the page. The feeling returned, I'd lost concern about the light, and I folded and closed the book again, tossed the covers partially off me, maybe halfway. This time, the light went all the way down to twilight dim, maybe 80%. I was terrified. It had never done that before and it was not coming back to bright. The slider switch was outside of my reach, even if I'd stretched off the bed at full length, I wasn't going to reach it, so I didn't try. I just lay there, still mostly under covers, staring at it and scanning the room in shock for what felt like minutes. The adrenaline hit hard and in almost fight or flight response I no longer had to piss, now in near darkness, spooked as shit. I remember calling out for mom and dad with no response, and being concerned about my nearby window, didn't see or hear anything strange. When my heart finally slowed down again I foolishly opened the book once more, and only managed to read like 2 sentences before I absolutely couldn't take it anymore. Light be damned, I was going to get to the bathroom. I closed the book, I threw the covers completely off myself determined, rotated my body, and got one toe to hit the floor. Lights fucking out pitch black, couldn't even see with the ambient light from the window right next to me. Before my eyes could adjust to darkness, I rotated myself right back into bed, covers over face. I did not get up to use the restroom, I did not piss the bed, I have no further memory of what happened, my family have no memory of me calling out to get them. I woke up the next morning completely baffled, terrified, and went to school like nothing happened.
I have a weird one about a magic guy in Mexico. Everyone told me growing up that he had a don, which means like a blessing from God sorta. People who do healing or who have special skills are sometimes said to have undon. Dad is from small Mexican village. A local man is kind of famous for his good crops. People say he has a don and that he can water his crops with his hands. Desu I don't know. I just know I like the guy because he always gives me and my cousins bits of sugar cane for free when we go over. FFW. I'm about 13 years old now. Visiting Mexico. On our last day, the guy with the don invites my family over for dinner. We go over, I shake his hand, and he asks us if we want some free sugar cane. Tells us we can pick our own mangoes if we want. Yes, bulls. As we're walking out the back door to the man's fields, Dad tells me to watch the man closely, so I do. Keep in mind, the first thing I did when I entered this man's house was shake his hand. They were completely clean. Now I'm watching him a few feet in front of me and I see bits of black stuff start dripping off his hands. His hands go from looking clean to looking like he's been digging around in the dirt. He hasn't touched anything yet. He kneels by one of the chili plants and digs around for a bit, then gets up and dusts off his hands. Dad shows me the chili plant and points to the one next to it. The one the man was touching has fresh black soil round its base, the other plant doesn't. Dad just smiles, but I'm whiffing like, how the hell is this real? Look over at the man. He's sprinkling water at one of the plants. I actually see the water flying off his fingers. There's no water anywhere nearby. His hands were totally dry when I shook them. After a while, he cuts down some sugar cane and we go inside. Have a nice dinner and leave Mexico the next day. The man passes away before I ever have a chance to return. Cousins tell me the crops still grow good in his fields, but not as good as they used to. MFW.
A bird died. Years ago the thing crashed into my arm and started thrashing around trying to fly off again but couldn't because the seat had holes in the armrest. Bird managed to jump and fly low, tried to go up. Cat came out of nowhere, jumped and intercepted bird and ate it, completely. Cat never did that before. During the next 2 months Cat slowly suffered from several diseases, one after the other. Last 2 weeks Cat actually suffered physical injuries and a horrible perforation in his leg despite not fighting anything. Cat eventually died. Mother said that was not a bird, but something or someone that sent what seemed like a bird to fuck me or all of our family up. Cat saved me by taking the brunt of the curse or whatever by killing and eating what seemed like a bird when it tried to flee. Cat died for me. I have never stopped having cats afterwards, they always catch something aimed at us and die. Dogs seem to scare of things, cats actually take the brunt of it. The more cats you have the better, but you run the risk of catching some cat-related disease. It's a 50-50, it has to be somewhat independent, not like apartment cats that can't catch a mouse and die if you change their diet. These need to be somewhat free, and somehow they know, they get that instinct, to protect from your local or regional curses or witches and whatnot. This happened in Mexico. There's also rumors around here that someone became a Nahual and it is going around the block fucking people up with whatever they throw at the air, see where it lands. I have heard my cat more than once fighting something in the bushes or over the house. Some heavy fuck. Sounds like a cat, but it definitely isn't one. Current cat always wins, but I don't know for how long he will hold. And I know our small business has several people very jealous and mad. They don't know how much we break our backs for what an American would call pocket change, idiots. Most of them are Catholics too. They are condemning themselves to hell by going to people who curse for money and wishing harm for petty reasons. Fucking idiots. I know God will protect us, I believe in Him. And in myself.
Yeah, I've got a fucking spooky story for ya. Despite hearing umpteen stories from other people about ghost shit they saw, like a demon ghost haunting a guy's house, or a ghost that haunted my relative's house, or a ghost that attacked a girl I know, guess what? I've never ever seen anything even remotely paranormal. Know what that means? It's all made up. I used to believe that stuff, like how a kid believes in Santa or the Tooth Fairy without questioning it. Then one day this idea hit me, if there are so many ghosts, how come I've never seen one? And then I realized, it's 'cause there are no ghosts. Why? 'Cause how come all these other people saw them but not me? Am I repellent to them? No. The truth is, I don't lie for attention and they do, that's the difference. That's when I figured it out. The hardest one to come to terms with was my relatives. An aunt and uncle that the whole family loved and respected said a little girl used to haunt their house, that it had followed them around and there. After many years the impossible idea that they were lying hit me. Why was it hard to believe? 'Cause I was completely oblivious to the fact that a relative could be just making shit up. Just straight lying. And when I realized that, it changed my worldview. I knew then that anyone, closest family or complete stranger, could be a batshit insane crazy person. It's hard to realize your family is lying to you. Anyway, there's nothing. Post something else.
He doesn't know about Santa. Here's some OC. Still really creeped out every time I talk about it, but it might underwhelming compared to the wild shit I've read here. Don't mind any grammar mistakes, I'm ESL. I was 15 years old, in high school. Had a final project for algebra with two other friends, a not so bright bimbo and my nerdy friend that was in love with her. Bimbo suggests meeting at her house for the project. Nerd and I arrive. This place is huge. A literal mansion. Something feels off, especially with the kind of furniture they had, all antiques, with a huge porcelain saint greeting you as you open the door. We go into the kitchen to prepare a sandwich. Place is full of porcelain figures, it's mostly farm animals. I distinctly remember a rooster, around the table. There's a glass sliding door that leads to the backyard. We eat something and Nerd and I begin the project, while Bimbo is busy with homework for a subject she's recursing. After a while, I'm sitting waiting for Nerd to finish some equations. I look to the backyard and notice something. Bimbo, do you have small kids in here? Says no. I point to the glass door, a small hand is printed onto the crystal. Its size and height from the floor are like those of a 4 years old. We're weirded out, but continue our homework. About 45 minutes pass and I stand up to take a breather at the backyard. I notice something new. There's now an even smaller hand next to the first one, closer to the floor. Like a baby's. I call my friends. We're all spooked cause that shit Daff wasn't there before. We get into the mood for spooky stories. Bimbo tells us some weird shit has happened at her house before. Shows us her parents' room, there's the head of a Virgin Mary that looks like it was crying something black. Says that head was used in an exorcism once. We go back down, resume work. I keep looking at the glass door. Eventually Bimbo gets up to have a some at the backyard. Lets out an audible gasp when she's at the door. We go check on her. Now there are a bunch of marks on the glass door. They look like hands that were dragged across the glass, or hands with freakishly long fingers. They seem to converge around the door's handle. We freak out and decide to go outside the house, through the front door. Eventually, Bimbo's parents come home with the housekeepers. Two somewhat young girls. Bimbo tells her parents about what we saw. When we try to show them, there's no marks anymore. Parents don't make anything of it and go upstairs. One of the housekeepers says there's duendes, a sort of Mexican leprechaun, in that house. They are playful and don't really do anything more than pranks. We leave like 30 minutes later. Only talk about it with them, because no one really believed us. During that time I developed sleep paralysis, which stopped like 2 years ago. Never seen anything like it ever since. Playful duendes. Still, that shit felt more menacing than anything.
Commencing dump. These are a series of stories largely based in a woods, so if that's not your cup of tea, move along. The first story is about the time I encountered a weird apparition in the woods near my house. For starters, a little background. I'm a military vet, not US. Seen combat. Trained information gatherer and scout as well. Living in a somewhat forested area, PIC-related is a mountain near my place. Have caught one too many tweakers use my property as a shortcut between their crack houses. Fuck that. Start doing semi-regular patrols around the property. One day, find an absolutely enormous old-growth softwood tree. Easily 15 feet around at the base, this is fucking massive. Notice that it offers good coverage/camouflage, as well as a view of the highway that the tweakers use. Keep this in mind for future excursions. Fast forward. One afternoon. Patrolling. It's hot as shit. When I reach the enormous tree I decide to take a break in the cool shade. Sit down at the base, lean back, take a swig from my canteen. Close my eyes for a bit. The wind picks up. Feels cold. Unseasonably cold. Open my eyes. Actually shivering from the unseasonable chill. Look right and that's when I see it. Looks like a human silhouette. Only it's floating 30 feet in the air. Transparent enough that I can see the alder trees behind it perfectly. Looks just like reality is embossed around the shape of this man-shaped outline, without legs. Can feel it staring at me. Overcome with a slow, creeping horror. Hard to explain, but I could feel like I was in this thing's home and I was not welcome. I blink, hoping the thing will disappear. Blink some more. It's still there. Slowly loop the shoulder strap of my backpack over my arm, grab my rifle with my other hand. Quickly hop to my feet and take off running in the opposite direction from the floating thing. Wind kicks up just then again. Unnaturally cold. I'm in 98-degree sunlight and it feels like a winter chill. Trees shake, leaves fall around me while I sprint through the swamp back to familiar territory. Realize then, shit, I'm lost. This makes no sense. I ran in the direction I'd come from, into territory I cross all the time, but nothing looks familiar. Take cover behind a fallen tree and begin appraising the situation. I know the direction I came from, and I have rough idea of where the main road is. Using that, and one of the nearby creeks, I managed to find the main trail. Still feeling watched though. And still feel like I'm not welcome here. hoof it down the trail, and after about a quarter mile I finally find my way back to my property. It took me a long time to return this area. Between the sighting of that thing and getting lost in familiar terrain, I'm not afraid to admit I was genuinely terrified. Time passes. Eventually I get the balls to return to this spot with a better plan. We'll finish in the next post. Hit the word limit. As soon as I arrive, that cold wind kicks up again. This time, I begin to pray. And using advice from some dumbass wannabe pagans I used to know, I audibly speak into the woods. Say that I have no idea what that thing I saw was and that I have no quarrel with it, but it does not have my permission to follow me home. Never have any other experiences in this area afterwards. Not sure what the apparition was, but the wannabe pagans I mentioned said it was a forest wight. Like a spirit that protects the forests in Euro myth, I guess. They suggested I leave an offering. Something without any artificial components, plastic, rubber, etc., so I left a wooden figurine and a bagel once. Didn't do shit, as far as I can tell. Continuing with a different sighting. This one involves a friend of mine, too. We both saw this thing outside an old shack that belonged to this crazy dude we used to know. High school days. My hometown has a well-known resident schizo named Roy. In my parents' generation, Roy was a big damn deal. He was the first to bring our high school football team to state. Handsome, popular dude with no shortage of girlfriends, etc. All that changed after his brother died in a murder disguised as a hunting accident. The suspect was another local schizo. This drove Roy into a long, unbelievably deep spiral that he never fully emerged from. Ended up diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. Went off his meds every few months. When he did, he often attacked the asphalt road in front of his shack with a pickaxe. He did this while screaming that there was a secret underground tunnel that ran under his property. Said the zippers used it to steal stuff from his house and then escape undetected into the woods. He called these mysterious thieves the zippers because of their speed. They'd zip in and out without being seen. Roy was eventually banned from every public space in town for his panhandling and threats to people who questioned him. Roy was fond of my family though. He told me we had a good aura, but probably it was just because we actually treated him with respect. Plus my parents were friends of his before his episodes ever started. Interesting note: Roy could, upon request, immediately recite all the numbers off the plate on any telephone pole in the town. He also claimed repeatedly that he was a reincarnated soldier from the Union Army named Robert G. Stebben, Stebben. Anyways, my family would often deliver fresh water to him in gallon jugs. On one visit he offered to show me the room where he said spoke with Satan on a nightly basis. I politely declined. On this particular visit, Roy had torn up all the flooring from his two-room shack in order to expose the hidden tunnel network underground, the one the zippers supposedly used. He had tossed all the wood into a heap and set it ablaze in a bonfire. That's when my friend and I saw what we saw. I was making the weekly delivery of water jugs and had my good friend with me. Being off his meds made Roy a serious talker. He'd jabber on for hours with his delusional ramblings. So my friend and I sat politely, half listening to what Roy was saying, when I looked past Roy's shack and saw something in the woods behind it. The basic description is this: it was humanoid, stood about 1.5 times taller than an average man, but about half as wide. Tall, skinny fucker, covered in shaggy black hair. It was there for a moment before bounding away into the brush. Bipedal. Seemed to look back over its shoulder at us as it left. Moved much faster than any person could in such thick woods. Since I was kinda daydreaming while listening to Roy's ramblings, I kind of thought I might be imagining things. The sun was going down, too. But my friend tugs at my sleeve and asked, "Did you see that too?" It was a long, silent, intense car ride home. We didn't talk about it till we were back in safe. I gathered that my friend really only saw the thing after it moved, whereas I got the better look at it. We discussed what it logically could have been till we decided it didn't fit any logical explanation we could think of. Kinda just dropped it after that. Roy died a few years ago after letting some tweakers move in with him. Now his old hut has been demolished. The road leading to it has as of it now been left intentionally blocked. Several fallen trees and abandoned cars will impede your path if you try to drive down that road. Pick related is a random pick from the general area, Sasquatch story. This one comes from a friend. Friend has a weekly routine which he almost never deviates from. Sundays are for horseback riding. Introspective time, out alone riding his horse as long as he wishes with a backpack full of food and drinks. Done it a million times in the past, just him and his horse in the mountains, exploring lakes and riverbeds around there. Needless to say, he and his horse have a special bond. One morning, friend saddles up, kisses the wife goodbye, and goes out riding like usual. Heads up the mountain, pick related, intending to find a nice vantage point, hitch his horse, and take in the view. A few hours riding and he comes across a part of the woods he'd not visited before. There's a small ravine there. Friend crosses. Then begins ascending the slope. But horse bucks him off without warning, sending him tumbling down to the creek at the bottom. At the same moment, an awful, sickening rotten stench surrounds him. He hears crashing sounds and other loud noises out of view, over the crest of the hill. Horse panics and flees, leaving him alone. Now there he is, ass in the creek, with some beast, or whatever it is, somewhere above him. His only protection is a fixed blade knife and backpack full of expired canned soup and Vienna sausages. Something begins lobbing tree limbs and large rocks over the edge at him. When he finally regains his senses, he gets to his feet. Runs in the same direction his horse did, through unfamiliar terrain, with that same crashing noises right behind him the whole time, like whatever it is chasing him. He continues running as fast as he can, up and down through the gullies, over rocks, between the trees, till he feels like he might collapse. Breathing is growing short, ache in his sides. Right when exhaustion is creeping up on him, everything goes silent. He looks around and finds that he's back at the trailhead. His horse is nervously milling about and my friend's pursuer is nowhere to be seen. Feeling fortunate, he hops back on his horse and heads home early. Hasn't ever been back to that side of the mountain since. He isn't the only person to have had experiences on that mountain though. Just a few months ago, during the company employee appreciation picnic, somebody's rat dog goes missing. It's found a few days later. Eviscerated. Another lady told me that while camping there with her family, something huge and bipedal was circling the campsite, staying just out of the fire's light. I've been there myself. Never experienced anything spooky, but I did return with several pictures of the beautiful scenery, going to share how Roy's brother was killed because it sort of ties into another story I remember about a haunted gun. But first, the murder. I'm just going to go ahead and name the perpetrator here because he's a psycho and fuck him. His name's Lane. Lane was something of a local celebrity in my town, for all the wrong reasons. The dude was just as crazy as Roy would later become, only Lane was actually violent. The dude was a menace, and everyone knew it. Then around 1978 or 79, Lane suddenly decided he didn't like Roy's brother. Nobody knew why. Roy's brother was friendly, extroverted, just a solid guy all around. Such a decent guy, in fact, that when Lane asked him to go out hunting, Roy's brother didn't question it. He just packed his gear, hopped into Lane's truck, and the two of them disappeared up the mountain. But only one came back. Long story short, Lane claimed the death was a hunting accident and there was not enough evidence to say otherwise, although I personally believe, just as everyone else did, that Lane took Roy's brother hunting with the intent to kill him. The gun Lane used was a Winchester. To be exact, it was a Winchester Model 1892 and .45 long, with an octagonal barrel. 20 inches, or maybe the next size up. Plain blued finish, minimal checkering on handguard and butt. Lyman peep sight added to the receiver. This was the weapon that murdered Roy's brother. And maybe because of this, the gun was believed to be haunted. After the hunting accident, Lane kept mostly to himself. But he managed to sell the murder weapon and it changed hands a few times. Then in 2015 a shooting buddy of mine invited me over to his place for some movies and gun talk. During the course of that, my buddy asked if I wanted to see something weird and took me to his gun safe. And there it was, the Winchester. Now, all my buddy knew was that he got this beautiful gun, which could have been a museum piece, on the cheap off some dumb drunk at a yard sale. He knew nothing about Lane and Roy or the murder. So why did he call it weird? Well, according to him, he thought the gun was sort of bad luck. Apparently just after purchasing the gun, he had a series of accidents. After each incident, he noticed a connection between his accidents and his use of the Winchester. There was even major damage to his property from a freak wind storm, and thought it was because of the gun. As a result, he always makes sure to keep the rifle in perfect condition. And always locked in the safe. After telling me this, he asked if I wanted to hold it lol. I did, of course. Now, the movie was still on the TV this entire time. But when I shouldered the gun, the TV suddenly went to static. My buddy looked from me to the TV, back to me, then took the gun and carefully placed it back in the safe. As soon as he took the rifle from me, the TV went back to normal. That's basically my own little experience with it. Although there's one little detail I didn't tell my buddy. I have tons of war trophies in my collection, all with grisly histories. I've even fired an Arisaka Type 99. But I've never gotten the feeling I got when I held that Winchester. It's impossible to describe, other than to say it gave me an ominous feeling, like a darkness hung over me while I held it. So as much as I love classic rifles, I'm glad it's back in my hometown, and 1,400 miles away from me.
Hey fellas, Airport Anon here with a spooky story from a coworker. Not nearly enough spooky shit happens to me at work here, but everyone in my team has at least one. This story comes from one of the regular late night workers, we'll call him Jay. Late night shift at the international terminal, usual gig. Boring night for Jay, last flight is boarding, time to pack up and head home. Once store is shut, Jay needs to hit the shitter. International toilets are always a pigsty at this time because of filthy passengers. Decides to wait to go to the bathroom in between domestic and international, airport so small they're effectively the same building. Gets out to domestic terminal, they're all getting closed up and cleaned for the night. Annoyed, Jay heads around the terminal to find anything open. Finally find one not closed or getting cleaned, shitty little bathroom on the other side of departure gates. And when I say little I mean this bathroom is little. It's literally 2 stalls, a urinal and a sink. Wedged into the walls as an emergency stop for those who didn't go, it doesn't see a lot of use. Jay gets into a stall, starts doing his business. Stall next to him is occupied, he can hear some low, heavy breathing but that's it. Uncomfortable, but what can you do? Finishes up and starts to go, the slider won't unlock. Here's a loud thud next to him, like someone just slumped to the ground. Jay is trying to get the slider to move but it just won't budge. That's when the sound of thumping on the door from the next stall starts, like someone is trying to get out. The lights start fizzing out, Jay is starting to panic. Thumps are getting louder, more aggressive, someone really wants out of their stall. The lights are about to go out, and the smashing on the stall door is getting too much. The smell of rotten shit is filling the bathroom, like something died and was left to rot. Jay finally decides fuck it, slides under the stall door and runs out. Jay gets out of the bathroom. The slamming on the next stall sounds like it'll tear the door off. Rushes out to find security, tells them what's going on. Follow him back to the bathroom, it's empty, lights work perfectly, other stall is totally empty. Security for some reason don't seem too bothered, Jay leaves to go home because WTF was that. Later when we followed up on what the hell happened, turns out that a big Samoan dude died of a heart attack in that very stall late at night about 2 weeks ago. Airport EMTs had to pry the door open to get the fat cunt out, as he had fallen against it as he died, wedging it shut. Security had about 2 previous callouts to similar incidents there, and another one afterwards, so that seems to be why they weren't too fazed. It's been about a year since then and there's been no other incidents, so I guess the guy finally found his rest. Jay obviously never used that bathroom again, and I avoid it now as well.
This story is the absolute unembellished truth. When I was a young boy we had a C64 computer. It was a wonderful gaming machine and I had quite a collection of games. One night, I was playing the C64. Now, for needless reference, the computer was in my parents' bedroom. It was either 1985 or 1986, and I was playing Kickstart. Well, I finished playing the game and resetting the computer via power cycling, as I always did. This means back in the olden time days when we quit playing the game we literally turned off the computer. I though accidentally clicked the power from off to on again, so the computer rebooted, and on the C64 initial boot screen it said, "Hello, my first name." My first name is a very rare first name, and mostly it's black dudes, even though I'm white, but I digress. I say that because I have no idea why it would say hello, my first name, when it booted. I scared the shit out of me, like my hairs collectively stood on end. I turned off the computer, turned off my parents' bedroom light, walked down the stairs into the living room and watched TV with my family without saying a thing, as I knew that nobody would have believed me anyways. The thing is, that place, that condo, that land had a really negative vibe about it. I wouldn't be surprised if some funky shit happened there, it just had a weird fucking energy about it.
Here's a quick one. I was working at some chicken houses in North Georgia, the state. I was standing in the doorway just looking out at some wooded area, when I saw something rustling at the very top of a tall tree. I walked to the tree, just to see, and saw something sliding down the trunk of the tree. It stopped at eye level. It was a face, kind of looked like an old man, but the face was behind the bark pushing out, if that makes sense. The look on the face was maybe slightly annoyance, but it just looked at me for a few seconds, then slid right back up the tree trunk, and disappeared. To this day I'm not sure what that was.
Too spooky. When I was a child, my family lived in England for a few years. We lived in this old farmhouse. It was probably at least 300 years old. Definitely haunted. If you were up on the 3rd floor at night, you could hear something dragging back and forth in the attic space. The root cellar had this awful feeling about it, but I never experienced any activity related to it. As we were moving out, my mom was on the 2nd floor in the master bedroom with one of the movers. The master bedroom, for reference, was located right next to the stairway to the 3rd floor. Also, they had already cleared out our things from the 3rd floor. As they were clearing out the master bedroom, they hear a thud from the 3rd floor, and then a voice that said, "Oi, can you lend me a hand up here?" Suffice to say, nobody ventured up to the 3rd floor to investigate. I also used to hear noises in my bedroom walls, but that could have just been the shrews. Who knows? My brother had this electronic teddy bear that would also randomly activate while in his toy box. Wasn't a Teddy Ruxpin, but it had this mechanical belly that would move up and down slowly while on its back, to mimic sleeping. It made snoring noises to add to the effect. Pretty unnerving to hear that thing go off while in the toy box, especially when you open it to investigate, and the fucking bear was in the upright position. Be me. 4 or 5 years old at the time. Living in an old house probably built in the 60s in Ogden, Utah. House had 4 rooms, but we always had uncles living with us, so me and my brothers would sleep in the living room floor. I would usually knock out at 9 p.m. Brothers would stay up like djinns till 1 to 2 a.m. Once they slept. And don't wake up for shit. I would usually wake up wide awake around 3 to 4 a.m. One night as I laid there staring into darkness, I couldn't help but start noticing little dark figurines forming/appearing in front of me. As my eye vision adapted to the dark, I could see them a lot clearer. These were tiny 1-foot-tall duendes or little beings. I could clearly see their little outlines, and they had faces with scars all over, all staring right at me. I would try waking my brothers up, but they wouldn't budge. Went back to sleep. This began occurring every single night for weeks. My parents and brothers wouldn't believe me when I would tell them in the daytime. Thought to myself, maybe I'm hallucinating, or it isn't anything. Another night comes and they began appearing below my feet. I could 100% see little creatures staring right at me, freaked the fuck out lol, and knew I wasn't trippin'. Woke up one of my older brothers as I cried. He finally woke up and looked. He proceeds to say there wasn't shit and to go back to sleep. I continued to see them, so I thought WTF. Maybe he didn't even look right, or only I couldn't see them. Began sleeping in a room after my uncle moved out and never saw them again.
Okay, fuck it, here it is, how I ended up spending a year working for a glowy-for-hire agency. Warning, very long, kinda boring, no conclusion. True story though, but names changed and identifying details omitted because lots of NDAs, as you'll see. December 2019, I'm broke and unemployed. Applying to jobs online non-stop, not even reading them at this point. Get an email back from one, not unusual, but I've had shit luck, so I leave it for a day. Next day I read it and holy fuck. $55K/year plus $3,000 immediate hiring bonus, clerical work job, and all I need is to qualify for secret clearance. I can probably do that, so I email them back and say I'm interested. Phone call with recruiter, they seem cool, they give me the gist of the job. Seems like normalish office work, company building is also generic office. 2 more interviews and I'm thinking, bro, come on, this isn't Silicon Valley, but they're polite, so I go along with it. Get told they want to hire me, I just gotta get the clearance. Another month goes by and it's nearly January, but I get the clearance. Start date January 6th, yes, that one, fast forward. Day 1 they throw not 1, not 2, but 7 packets of NDAs and paperwork at me to sign. Holy fucking shit, okay, goddamn, gimme a pen. Make sure you read them, you have all day. I read them, they bring me lunch at noon so I can work through it. My brain is melting by the end of it, but the gist is if you leak anything we will fire you, sue you, and throw you to the government, who will fuck your ass. Lots of long words that look made up, like I'm not stupid, but it genuinely just looked like schizobabble. Finish signing everything by 3:30 p.m. Good, you can go home for the day. Tomorrow we'll introduce you to your team. They also give me the $3,000 bonus as an e-transfer immediately, which is odd but okay. Sleep like a rock with its rent paid, back at company early next morning. Meet my new boss, some Indian guy with a very Indian name. Just gonna call him Deep because that's what his name ended with. Deep's a nice guy, but kinda awkward in that way most Indian immigrant men are. Tells me that, for now, we're just going to deal with non-classified stuff to ease me into everything. The company, by the way, is basically a gigantic pie conglomerate type thing, think Pinkertons but less violent. First week goes by quick and easy, I'm just helping Deep out by finding docs for him. Some of the stuff in them is a bit skeezy, like pictures of dudes fucking hookers taken through windows, but it's mostly tame. Meet a few more workers on the team too, Andrew, Lee, and Mark. Mostly kept away from them because they're working on other things. Soon enough, February rolls around and Deep says I'm doing well. Everyone's also getting a little freaked out by COVID because all we have are the China numbers and they're bad. Deep says I'm going to work with Lee on his project. Lee's a Chinese American and he's been taking time off recently because he's worried about his relatives. The project is different for sure, tracking certain people in Boston of all places who are suspected to be connected to terrorism. Nothing paranormal though. The point of all this is to make you understand, this job was normal right up until it wasn't. Anyway, I'd if these people were threats or not, but we were basically just making dossiers out of shit our field people were gathering. March hits. We're sent home on the 6th and told not to come back. Wait, I'm fired? No, the whole state is about to lock down. We're gonna mail you a work laptop to use. Just stay safe. From home? Yeah, when you get it, log in with your company credentials and message Deep. Well, fuck me, okay, the money is good, so being able to jerk off and play video while working just makes it better. An entire month passes before I get the laptop. I was still getting paid, but holy fuck, I had nightmares near the end about waking up to a layoff notice. The laptop isn't even a good model, it's some Acer piece of shit branded with the company logo. Pop it open, hook it to my Wi-Fi, log into Outlook. Over 1,000 new messages, all corpu spam mailing list bullshit. Message Deep on Teams, no reply. Fuck it, keep the laptop open and go back to Poe. No message all day. No message back all week, despite me messaging Deep every day. Nobody on my team is online and I don't know of any other contacts. Literally do nothing and get paid until someone finally messages me almost 2 weeks into May. Lee quit, Deep's on sabbatical and flew back to India. Mark was supposed to contact me but he got fucking fired, and Andrew got reassigned. They basically forgot they hired me but kept paying me. Only in corporate America. Well, it's not your fault. We do need someone else on an RVS team. Are you okay with a transfer? I dunno what the fuck an RVS team is, but yeah, okay. We'll prep your transfer paperwork, sit tight. 2 weeks pass and I make sure to check in every day to not get fired. Okay, you're ready. Just sign this new NDA and attend the meeting on the 30th, then call Shane on the Monday after. New NDA? Wait, the 30th? A fucking Saturday? It's just 2 hours in the morning. You also get a $10K/year raise for this position change. Yes sir, right away sir, thank you for the job and extra time off sir. Oh, and here's your wiki key. Wiki key? For the company wiki. Turn on your VPN and go to companyname.wiki. Try it, get a login page asking for employee ID, password, and key. You can read anything at access level 2 and below. Start with the RVS onboarding page. Yes sir, thanks sir, I'll get right on that sir. Call ends. I go back to clearing T16s for the rest of the night. Wednesday before the meeting. Okay, maybe I should check that Wiki thinks the gamer as he loses his third hardcore character of the week. Hop onto company wiki, put the key in, get access. Looks half-assed to be perfectly honest, but there's a link to RVS onboarding on the front page and I click it. Turns out RVS is short for remote viewing support. I had no idea what that meant at the time, so I clicked the article for remote viewing. Felt like my brain was melting by the end of it. Can't tell if I'm being pranked or not, but decide to go with it to make a good impression either way. From what I can tell, an RVS team is basically made up of a bunch of people who take information from the RV team and make it usable. There are tons of forms and procedures that are supposed to be followed, and I can practically smell the middle manager's semen through the web page. If I'm being honest, I only spent about 45 minutes on the wiki before I shut the laptop. It's almost 3 times as much work as I was doing before I got almost 3 fucking months of free money. To make matters worse, the meeting on Saturday is at 9 a.m. according to the schedule on Outlook. I have not been getting up before 11:30 for almost 2 months. Spend several miserable days adjusting back to a sane sleep schedule. Read a bit more on the company wiki too, but again, at this point I have no idea if I'm being fucked with. Like, was I really supposed to believe that there were dudes doing telepathy experiments in the same building I was in a few months ago? Anyway, Saturday rolls around and I manage to fall out of bed at 8:45 just in time to gulp down a monster and get into the Zoom call. At 9 sharp the leader of the meeting jobs the call, and I hit record because I'm half asleep. We'll call him Hugo, and he sounds about as tired as me as he pops open his PowerPoint slides. At least the meeting isn't going to be overly formal. Hugo introduces himself as a PMR tech and reads the title of the first slide. Intro to Parapsychology. In the most soulless, corporate way you can imagine, Hugo proceeds to go to the next slide and tell us, there are 12 people including Hugo, the contents of the meeting. Recent history, psychic field, psychic abilities, common misconceptions. No time to ask anything and we're all put on mute, then the trip begins. The gist of the recent history is that right after Stargate ended, the GIA made a remote viewing program and it was used in the War on Terror. Also some Russian who was named Yuri wrote a paper on how psychic abilities work and it's legit. 30 minutes of schizo history later, Hugo tells us to take 5 while he preps the next part. I piss, brush my teeth, grab a Pop-Tart, and get back to the laptop. 5 minutes later Hugo starts up again. Psychic field is a non-material information field that permeates all matter and energy. Consciousness forms when the psychic field has enough information in it plus enough change in it and the change is coherent. Everything you see or touch or I guess even pass by gets sucked into this extended zone around your consciousness where information gets read and written. Everyone does this all the time but with training or practice you can control it. Real psychic shit is ESP stuff, fake psychic shit is fireballs, telekinesis, etc. Oh, and if you tell anyone you're going to be fired, sued, and probably jailed. Just so you know. Before I go, just remember to report any suspected NPE contact to your supervisor. Meeting over. The fuck is an NPE? Pop open wiki and search. Non-physical entity. You've gotta be fucking joking. PMR stands for psychomaterial research, or the study of how psychic fields affect and are affected by matter. NPEs are literally ghosts, spirits, fucking mind viruses, and something in a level 3 page labeled detached consciousness entities. I don't even want to know at this point but I'm pretty sure I can imagine what's in there. Remote viewing is an unblockable fucking magic way of pulling information from the psychic field across vast distances. The only disadvantage to RVing is that it's inherently very inaccurate because not only does it require psychic training, but it draws a link to the target using matter and energy that contains psychic information that can corrupt it. This is why Stargate was shut down, they couldn't figure out how to remove the corruption of the info. Corporate America's solution? Have 20 people do it at the same time and blame the RVS team if there are any major fuck-ups. I have been hired as a professional fall guy for psychics. I have been hired as a professional fucking fall guy for fucking corporate psychics. It's sort of all too much so I just shut down, go back to Poe, order a pizza. Rest of the weekend goes by in a haze. Monday rolls around and I message Shane on Teams. He's delighted to have me, calls me up immediately, and we spend an hour going over everything before he gives me my first assignment. For the next 3 weeks, I'm spending 10 hours a day sifting through handwritten documents and transcribing audio from RV sessions. Did I mention that this is boring? Imagine having to transcribe some faggot's brain dump ramblings and you can't fuck up anything because any word might be relevant. I wanna die. Finally finish, send everything to Shane. Oh, this is great, thanks. You're approved for a 0.05% commission on this, by the way. Okay, how much is 0.05%? $1,141.65, this time. Holy fuck. This is not $1.65k your job. This is $1.80k your job. Well, fuck me, making 2 times as much as I was in 2018 for office bitch work sounds pretty good. The months fly by, and bro RV info is some weird shit. Sometimes the viewers don't even write words, they like sketch out pictures that look like a kindergartner drew them and we have to classify them. Other times, they'll get sensory information like the smell of a place and there's a special form for classifying that for later use. Everything is kept fairly anonymized, so we can't tell the specifics of what's being viewed a lot of the time, but usually we have an idea. X. A politician's favorite spots: the interior of some fag's house where he's hiding something, a cave where some terrorist fuck is hiding. Slowly it starts to become routine, right up until I get a weird email one day. It's Andrew and the email looks like some kind of shitty attempt at a phishing scam. Don't even read it. The security department tests us with this shit all the time. Send it to the phishing reporter thing and go back to work. Weeks go by, forget about it, too busy stacking paper. Suddenly, email from someone new, the chief of our department. Oh fuck, it's a meeting I can't refuse in 4 days. I'm gonna get fucking fired, god damn it. Show up to meeting, cam on, wearing decent clothes and a new haircut I had to get illegally. Mr. Anand, you were contacted by Andrew last name on September 18th. Yeah. What color was the text? I'm sorry, what? The text in the email, what color was it? I don't know, I took one look and deleted it. Blue, I think? Blue is the default. Understood. I regret to inform you that we will no longer be requiring your services. Your layoff paperwork will be sent to you later today. Please note that this isn't a reflection on your performance, and you may seek references from your immediate coworkers. Fuck. Suddenly I realize I should have been saving shit. Try to access the wiki and grab some shit, cover my laptop cam and use my phone to take pics of the pages. I get 2 of them finished before my access is revoked, 2 NPE docs, non-interactive psychic impression entities and interactive psychic impression entities, with a third, psychomaterial impression disruption, half loaded before the page cuts off so no images or diagrams. Access revoked. Apparently that didn't do that before the meeting. Try to message my team members. They're all offline, rather, I'm blocked. Check the recording I made of the Saturday morning meeting in May. It's still there. Play it back, record with phone. Transfer all the phone files to my main PC and back them up on a USB. Ping. It's the layoff paperwork. I get 2 weeks of pay, technically more than they were required to give. Yet another NDA, this time with sections that I have to sign mid-document. To summarize, you will delete any recordings and stored documents, sign to agree. You will not disclose the nature of your work at company name, sign to agree. You will receive a package in the mail and send our laptop back, sign to agree. You will put your job title as Information Processing Technician on your resume, sign to agree. You will give XX as the phone number of our company, sign to agree. If you fuck this up, we will sue you so hard the trace amounts of precious minerals in your body will be repossessed, faggot, sign to agree. Sign this again to say you actually read the document, faggot, sign to agree. Can't exactly refuse, so I do it. Disconnect laptop from internet and try copying saved video to USB, surprisingly it works. I've made enough cash in 10 months to live on for a year, plus unemployment, so it's not that bad. 2 days later the box arrives and I send the laptop back. Never hear from them again. Find a new job 4 months later making $50,000, RIP. So it's been just under 3 years now and I haven't had any feds on my doorstep, but I've also kept mostly quiet about the stuff I've got. The thing is though, I keep seeing bits of info I saw on that company wiki getting posted around in places mixed in with pure disinfo and it really makes me wonder. Allegedly, there was some US disinfo campaign going on in the 50s 90s to make psychics look retarded so nobody would suspect that the CIA was trying to develop psychic spies, but it's supposed to have stopped after the USSR fell and all that shit went public. I mean, the history section of the presentation was pretty clear that Stargate went right into practical use after the project ended, so maybe they just kept it up to this day. Anyway, that's the story. Never found out why exactly they fired me, but I guess Andrew might have fucked me over? Maybe it was all a ploy to just get rid of me when they realized I probably wasn't supposed to be working in that department anyway. I wish this had more of a stinger to it, but reality is often disappointing. Still, It was basically my intro to /x/shit, so that's something.
Thanks for posting it, but it reads like it's fake, and no doubt at risk of getting vaporized from orbit. You can't post any corroborating information like the alleged saved partial wiki pages.
Technically it's pictures of those wiki pages and it's on my old phone that I use for an alarm clock. But yeah, the only way I'd post that shit is if I black box the company logos and anything identifying. Same issue with the video. I'd have to fucking put a giant square in the top left to block out the company logo and bleep a bunch of shit where Hugo, not his real name obviously, talked about people working there.
Right, and MS painting a few black boxes over this stuff and just leaving the text is pretty much insurmountable. I understand the
It's not about insurmountable, it's about having to go through something around 13 or 14 pictures filled with text, and figure out what does and doesn't violate the fucking NDA. And what does and doesn't let some artist figure out where it came from. Worse for the video, since honestly, I'd probably have to mask the voice in it too just to be sure. That's at least 2 to 3 days of work for the wiki pages because I have a full-time job and shit to do, and easily 2 weeks for the video. I didn't even really think about most of this shit much until recently because paying my bills and feeding myself is a bit more important.
Worked for the men in black in the remote viewing department. Never even thought about this shit until 2 weeks ago. That said, for me, transcription of what the wiki pages said would be sufficient. It would be easy enough to fake a screenshot anyway, and all I want is the content on the extremely off chance you're not completely bullshitting. Most interested in the RV/psychic training protocols.
Okay, well, if you want a transcription I could actually do that, but that's still a week or two. The dudes weren't MIB though, to be clear. They were corporate pies with some gov connections and a lot of just normal working people. I'm very sure that most of the departments there had no idea what was going on in other departments. Most of the stuff I dealt with in the first bit was very mundane, and even the RV shit was just them trying to build dossiers on people. The thing is though, if I post screenshots someone will go you faked them, if I post video someone will go that's just you in the video, if I post transcriptions people will go nice LARP, maybe not you. The only way to really confirm it would be to drop the source files unedited, and even if I didn't fear the government, I do fear the legal ass reaming I would get if it ever made it back to these guys. Most interested in the RV/psychic training protocols. So the 3 articles I got were basically, in layman's terms, shitty ghosts that are just recordings that play back when you encounter them. Spooky ghosts that can fuck with you because they use your consciousness to emulate a sort of pseudo-awareness. How to purge an item of psychic information, how to unhaunt something or make it so nobody can get a psychometric read off it. I only got 1 and 2 because I was already on 1 when I tabbed over to the wiki. For training stuff, a lot of it wasn't strictly available to me since I was RVS, not RV, but everything I saw said indicated that what we were doing was basically what they did in the Stargate program. Like it was pretty much an exact copy as far as I know. Our company had people who were in the continuance program during the Afghanistan war and they carried the techniques over. I doubt it would be much different to what you can find in the Stargate paper. Get a subject who doesn't know shit on the target. Give them an anchor. Tell them to RV it. That kind of thing.
Elaborate. Shitty ghosts as you describe them resemble my own experiences with things I like to think of as memories left behind by someone. What the fuck is a spooky ghost, and how, why is it hijacking my mind?
Yeah sure, no prob. So ghosts of all types, spirits, all that stuff, are what we called psychic impression entities. What that means is that they're entirely composed of information stored in the psychic field, and in 99.9% of cases that's inside matter, which is why the 3rd article is psychomaterial impression disruption, not psychoenergetic impression disruption. You, as a conscious thing, are pretty much just pulling everything around you at all times into what we called your local psychic system and shorthanded as mind. When you do this, your subconscious can both read psychic information from those things, and write psychic information to them. In fact, it's doing that all the time at very low intensities, it's just that all that activity is below your awareness most of the time. A non-interactive psychic impression entity, shitty ghost, is sensory and experiential information, qualia, that's stored in such a way that it's not just vague noise, but instead the sum of it describes a more complex mental state experienced by a person at the time of storage. So, like, Let's say that a bunch of people watch their loved one get hanged, right? Due to intense emotion, stress, they might write psychic information into the environment around them that contains their sense and emotional info at the time. If this information sits mostly undisrupted and someone else, such as you, picks it up, you might see the person who died and even maybe feel what they felt. Have to split this? Fuck. Now, an interactive psychic impression entity is different and more complex, thus more rare. In this case, the information stored is enough that when your brain picks it up it can basically form an interactive experience. Think about how you can imagine you're speaking to someone and have them reply. It's like that, except the reply isn't formed by you, it's formed by the impression entity. It's not really conscious, it's just convincing your brain that it is. These things are what you usually think of as the kind of ghosts people try to communicate with. They feel alive because your brain experiences them as a distinct mental entity, but they're not really hijacking your brain or anything. They can be unpleasant because they can trigger unpleasant sensations, and they can sometimes stick in your head for a bit, but ultimately they will be purged with time. There was the other type that I never had access to the article for that, presumably, is an actual conscious entity that doesn't have a body, but beyond what can be inferred, I dunno what's up with those. Sounds like demons to me, Desu.
Few screenshots made by OP, because link to his stash is long gone. Not sure how to do the green text thing. Never posted this story online before. It's not my experience, but both my father and uncle saw it. Happened around 40 years ago, well before my time. This happened in Scotland. Dad was a teenager, lived in a small village in the countryside. He was out at night, walking alone to meet a group of friends that included my mum. He was walking up a dark and poorly lit country road. On the left was a farmer's field, forest behind it. This was surrounded by a brick wall, 6 feet plus. On the right was a small burn, like a small stream, then the forest continued. As Dad is walking up this road, he hears something following him from behind the wall, just assuming it was a cow, but it was breathing heavily. This eventually started to run, and around 40 feet ahead of him, it had jumped over the wall and landed on the road ahead. It stayed put and looked at my dad before jumping across the burn and running into the woods. Dad got the fright of his life and turned around and went home. When asking what he saw, he just describes as what appears to be some beast/werewolf type thing. He does not like to talk about it. As it turns out, my uncle also saw the same thing. He used to do the milk round in the village. He quit not long after. I am estranged from this uncle, so can't ask more about it. Years later, 10 plus, Dad was working in a large city for a bank. On his lunch break while sitting in a cafe, a woman approached him. She told him things only he knew, things about his future. Before leaving, she told him what he saw that night meant no harm, it wanted to be seen, and it was not something of this world. First time posting something this long, I hope it works. Posting from my phone. Enjoy. I'm sure many of you will call this BS, but it's one of a few paranormal stories I have.
Last night. 3 a.m. laying down, trying to fall asleep to some program in my room. Gradually hear an atmospheric rumbling getting louder and louder outside. At first think it's a plane flying over, but it doesn't go away, just keeps rumbling. Look outside, don't see anything out of the ordinary, no storm clouds, no planes, helicopters, etc. Go back in and wait for it to go away. At one point it briefly fades out before coming back. In the interval between fading out and fading back in, I hear an extremely loud radio static kind of noise, like when you would turn off an old CRT monitor. But it's so loud that I get this weird tinnitus effect from it. It makes my ears ring and almost sounds like it's coming from inside my head. Rumbling stops after 20 minutes. WTF. Probably wasn't paranormal, but it was still weird.
This story always makes me a little more sad than scared, but it is spooky. Grew up in a 3-bedroom house. Parents got the master bedroom. Brothers and I got the next biggest room. My aunt got the smallest room. She lives in that room for years before she passes away in a car accident. Her boyfriend was driving them to a party when an 18-wheeler crashed and killed them on the freeway. Mom was devastated. Aunt's room remained untouched for a while. During that time, I used to hear stuff in that room a lot. Aunt's room had hardwood floors. My bed was right up against the wall. At night, I could hear footsteps through the wall. The distinct sound of someone pacing the floors. Sometimes I would hear the spring mattress creaking too, like someone was lying down in it. The scariest experience I had was when I got up in the middle of the night to use the restroom and heard footsteps in my aunt's room from the hall. The house was dark and everyone else was asleep. I hurried to the bathroom, did my business, and was returning to my room when I heard the doorknob to my aunt's room rattling. Not violently or anything, but it sounded very loud in the silence. I froze and stared at the door. I saw the doorknob jiggling. After a moment it stopped and I heard footsteps retreating away from the door. Bolted to my room and fell asleep hiding under the covers. Eventually the room was finally emptied. All the ghostly activity stopped after that. I wonder if my aunt's spirit was trapped in that room by her belongings maybe. Once we got rid of all her stuff I never heard anything again.
Saw something like this as a kid once. Rural Nebraska. Fly fishing near my house. Surrounded by woods. I'm about 12 or 13. Spot something moving at eye level in the trees across the creek. For a second, I think I'm getting dizzy but realize it's the trees. Almost looks like they shift slightly to one side. Happens really fast, very disorienting. Then I'm looking at a big face in the bark of one of the trees. Transfixed by it. Slowly it fades away.
Okay boys, here goes nothing. Winter of 2018 to 2019. Live in a rural area a couple of miles from town. Usually walk dogs in a mountain field near house. Night in question I stay home, brother takes dogs out for a walk by himself. Moon isn't quite full, but still light out. Not a big deal, just home in my room. Brother comes back after a while and asks parents if I followed him. They say no and ask why. He had been coming back on the same path we usually take and had apparently taken someone or something unawares. Said it was like a big, tall man that was slumped in a crouch on top of the hill. When it saw him coming, the thing stood up, turned, and ran away from him at high speed up a very steep grade and disappeared. Could tell he was dead serious about it and shook up. I get my gun and a headlamp and we go out after it. Snow on the ground still in places, but it had melted so much it was impossible to find good tracks. It really stuck with him after that. He bought 2 guns and would never go walking up there after dark unless someone went with him. The idea of whatever it was peering into my bedroom made me so afraid that I hung blankets on my windows for a time afterward. Just weird.
Only had one experience and it was very minor but still had me pretty spooked. 16 years old. Laying in bed trying to fall asleep late at night. Not tired at all. Hear notification on my phone. Decide fuck it, I'll check it, I'm not tired anyway. Reach for my phone on my nightstand. Hear woman screech extremely loudly, don't touch it, so fucking loudly. Shoot up in bed. What in the fuck was that? Sounded like it came from every direction. Severely spooked, don't know what to make of it. Slowly reach for my phone again. This time a whisper, don't touch it. Leave the phone alone for the night. Lay wide awake for another 2 hours, thoroughly freaked the fuck out. Never experienced anything like that again. I never knew what to make of this experience, I was basically wide awake. The voice was incredibly loud, may as well have come from someone shouting at the top of their lungs right in front of my face. I don't even remember what the notification was at this point, no clue why a ghost/spurt/whatever the fuck wouldn't want me to look at it.
Be me, city kid, 8 years old. Up at grandparents' place in the country for Thanksgiving. Everyone's a bit drunk, they start telling stories. Monsters, ghost stories, just kid stuff. Grandpa suddenly speaks up, he hardly ever talks. When I was growing up out in the woods with my ma and pa, we used to have a woman who called herself Annie which living nearby. One day Annie came by and told my ma she wanted ma to give her my baby sister. Ma told her to take a hike. She didn't like that. She tried for a month to talk ma into giving her my baby sister, but ma wasn't having it, so then she put a curse on her. She said if she couldn't have the kid, nobody could, and if the kid died and my ma didn't give her the body, the devil would curse our house. That winter, the baby died. Wasn't that uncommon back then? He was born in 1921, and ma buried her out behind the shack. 1 week after she died, we all woke up to the sounds of her crying. This happened every night for next 3 weeks. Annie came by during those weeks to tell us to give her the body and ma told her to F off. Once the crying stopped, that's when the devil showed up. I was laying in my bed, on my side, when I felt something lay down right behind me. I felt breath on my neck, stank like sulfur. Sounded like a dog, but we didn't own one, pa hated them and would shoot any on our property. Arms wrapped around my chest and held me tight, and I just sat there all night like that. Happened for a whole week before it stopped. Never talked about it until my pa was dying and he asked me if I ever felt the devil lay down in my bed. Told him I had, and he went quiet. Died the next day. That's why we burned that shack down after he died. He's so serious he looks like he's in a trance. My grandma put her hand on his back and says it's time to go to bed. Didn't sleep at all that night. Never got to ask if he was serious since he died the next year. Not paranormal but several years back. Have a habit of night driving. Occasionally stop off at local parks. After dark, so usually a cop with nothing better to do will show up and play tough guy to make me leave. They usually tail me for a while too. Suburban cops. One night I'm at a park I haven't been to before. Large playground, I'm exploring it a bit. Then take the long way back to my car, through some trees. Long story short, I found a kid hanging from one of the trees. Couldn't have been older than 12 or 13, middle school aged. Apparently tied a rope around one of the lower branches and just strangled himself. Pretty sure his feet touched the ground. Instantly panic and GTFO. Reach my car. Nearly lose my dinner all over the parking lot. Realize a cop could show up at any moment and panic some more. Haul ass out of there. Never go back.
Story from grandmother. Time at work is split with 9 months in the UK and 3 in Toulouse in France. Co-worker in France is a guy named Michael. He's Welsh but has a posh English accent. His parents were deaf so he learned to speak by listening to the radio. Anyway, my grandmother and Michael are friends as much as co-workers can be. We'll sit and have a chat over coffee on their breaks or whatever. One year she comes back to Toulouse and Michael isn't there. Asks another co-worker where he is and she says no one knows. Didn't show up to work and no one's heard from him since. Must have got a new job or moved away or something. Year or 2 passes by. Grandmother is in a rush about to go and meet some clients. Goes down to the break room to grab some coffee. Turns around and Michael is stood in the doorway. They make some totally normal brief small talk, oh hi how are you etc, the kind of thing you'd forget straight after it happened. She explains she's late to see her client so apologizes, says goodbye and goes off. Later on that day she's speaking to someone else who works there, mentioned she saw Michael. Coworker's face drops and she starts to get angry, questioning her as to why she'd say something like that. My grandmother's confused as to why she's shouting. Turns out the guy had been found dead, possibly murdered not long after she was last back in France. Not a scary story as such, just odd. She swears blind the guy was stood there just like anyone else would be. Another story, this time from my uncle. He has this friend, let's call him David. David had a sister who died very young, maybe 6 or 7 years old. Years earlier, when David was younger, he'd been on a family holiday to Egypt. The sister kicked a football onto an old forgotten landmine and got blown up. Uncle was going through a bit of a paranormal phase. Went into the dead sister's room and sat on her bed and asked for her to communicate with him. Nothing. One day he calls David's house to ask to meet up. Someone picks up and it sounds like a young girl on the other end. You can guess where this going. He asks where David is and she replies he'll be back home in a couple of hours. Slightly confused, he puts the phone down. When he next sees David, he jokingly asks who the girl who answered the phone was, thinking it was some new, albeit very young sounding, girlfriend David had. David is very confused and explains that no one could have been at home at the time my uncle said he'd rang. Let alone some random kid. Turns out a photo of the sister hung just over where the telephone was. My uncle thinks he spoke to the spirit of the sister that day.
I've heard of shit like this before, but I don't really know any of the specifics of what went on here. My family are also kinda bush people that lived out in the woods for a really long time, and they have similar stories about strange men or women asking to buy or otherwise take children from families for nefarious purposes, and all the crazy shit that would happen when those families inevitably denied them. I gotta say though, any which is pretty on the nose, even for bush people. It's also the part of the story that makes it most believable to me, because every single version of this that I've heard has similarly weird names for the people involved.
WTF. I have a story like this in my family. My grandma, Mom's mom, had some issue with her right hand. Couldn't move it at all. Fingers were all locked up like bad arthritis. She let me feel it once and the hand was hard as stone. Finally asked her what happened to it and she told me a story. Said when she was younger she pissed off this old lady in her hometown. This was in rural Arkansas somewhere, way back in the 30s or 40s, I can't remember. Anyway, the old lady was known to be a witch. Grandma said she woke up one night and heard something outside her window. Looked out. There goes the old witch walking away from her house, clearly visible in the moonlight. The next day she found a weird object buried in the dirt outside her room, just below the window. Dog dug it up. The object looked like a little pillow with gross stuff inside it. She mentioned a tooth and some hair. Pillow was sewn up with red thread. A day later, the dog died. That same night, Grandma had a weird dream where she wakes up in bed. Hears something walking around her room. Described it as similar to the trot of horse or a goat, kind of a slow, clop clop, clop clop. Grandma realizes she can't move. The trotting approaches her bed. Though she can't see anything, she feels a pair of hands clasp her right arm. Weird smell just then, a bit like burning. Feels pain in her right hand. Passes out. A week later, her hand locks up. Never functions again. She's from an era where nobody went to the doctors, so she just lives with it. Could be a genuine medical issue, but the story is still weird because I could tell she wasn't bullshitting me. My family has a bunch more stories like that about weird shit the people experienced back in the 20s and 30s out in the woods. It was such a mishmash of strange immigrant cultures back in those days that you just had all kinds of occult traditions crashing together and knowledge being lost all over. It was so bad sometimes that they even lost their languages within a generation, so nobody understood the stories of their parents properly. My family used to think they were Dutch for nearly 60 years because my grandfather's grandfather said he was from Deutschland. Not kidding. Just imagine how much we might have known if not for all that.
Where the fuck did you go? Me and that other Anon want to hear more.
Been a bit busy, man. Work and all. I did try to write out another story, but the problem is that a lot of them don't work that well as green texts because they weren't so much stories as mentions of things with a few details. The time my great-great-uncle, who was a notorious murderer, killed a bunch of people and threw their bodies in a lake, then allegedly made a deal with a demon so the cops wouldn't find him. The time my grandfather flew off the road due to ice on the way to the hospital to meet his dying brother and fucking totaled his car but walked away without a scratch, 5 minutes after his brother died, and swears he heard his brother tell him to duck down to avoid the tree that went right through his windshield at head level. The weird sex cult shit that went on in the 60s after all the bush people moved into towns where they'd go out in the woods and have orgies while wearing deer skins and horns. The time my deaf uncle pissed off a local native shaman lady and she cursed him in public, then he burned to death a week later in a house fire that killed him and only him and destroyed all evidence, despite his 2 kids and wife being in the house at the time. Like, there's a lot of this shit, but it's not very long or dramatic unless I embellish a ton.
Still good shit. Thanks for delivering Anon. This is my favorite sort of stuff. Scratches an itch. Too bad there's not more info on these. They're all intriguing.
I think the only one with a lot more to it is the sex cult, and it's basically the following. In the 60s, the bush people who used to live way the fuck out in the middle of nowhere all started to move into the cities to work. Bear in mind that city meant like 20k people back then in these areas. We're talking deep hillbillies here, not just rednecks. The kind of people who put a crucifix beside a native dream catcher and sacrifice a chicken under it for good luck. So one day my grandfather, who descends from these people but moved to the city in the 40s, hears the locals spreading rumors about weird shit going on. Lights in the woods, voices, monsters, etc. So he goes out to see what the fuck the bush people are up to because of course he knows it's them doing some shit. Essentially they've got a big ass wooden idol with a moose skull on it set up in the woods and they're holding a bonfire, chanting and fucking and God knows what else. He approaches and they invite him in even though he's dressed like a townie. He tells them he's married and they say, "Bring your wife too." He's like, "No, fuck that, you people are freaking out the townies, you gotta stop this." They make all kinds of threats but he's got a gun and isn't afraid of their bush voodoo bullshit because he grew up with it. Eventually they break it up and go home. He tells the townies about what happened and tells them to call the cops if it happens again. Cops end up getting called like a dozen times over the next few years to break up orgies in the woods. Bush people eventually settle for just wife swapping a lot. That's about it really.
Be like 12. Have a recurring nightmare every now and then. Wake up within the dream in my bed late at night. Get up to go to the dream bathroom. Open door. Little grudge girl in white dress, looks about 6 or 8. As soon as I see her I'm paralyzed, slowly sink down to the floor. Wake up. 11 years later, bad fucking number. Try cannabis for the first time in edible form. After a month get poltergeist activity. Wake up one morning paralyzed. Grudge girl is all grown up and hovering above me in my bed, white dress, long black hair hides her face. Somewhat, can't see her eyes. Neck and head shaking back and forth rapidly like that scene in Jacob's Ladder. Disappears after 5 seconds. Wake up another day. Paralyzed but on my side. Literally hear a corny-ass ghost sound. Oh. Go to bed sometimes and hear a cute female voice say my name before I fall asleep. This fucking bitch. Hot and cold bullshit. Likelihood of getting rid of a spirit that's been with you since childhood, guys?
If she doesn't seem excessively threatening, you could try talking to her. Remember, even if you are afraid, she doesn't know if you don't show it. Just be respectful about it and make your boundaries clear. Maybe offer some water, the good clean kind, not just unfiltered tap with bacteria and floater shit, if you're comfortable with it, and eventually branch out to other stuff she might like, tea, biscuits, whatever. More often than not they're just lonely and confused and appreciate some attention. Just quiet your mind down and focus your intent on her and, "Hello, Ike, if you're still around, but I'd like to offer you this glass of water. When you're done with it, I'll dispose of the physical remnants. I hope you enjoy. Believe me, you'll know if she's cool with it because you'll get the vibe. You'll also know if she's not done with the offering because you'll get a hands-off, bub warning feel when you go to remove it. Feel free to ask if she liked it afterward. Congrats, you're on your way to Schizodom and a Ghost GF. And if she, rare Desu, doesn't take kindly, get aggressive and dominant back. It's your domicile, not hers, and she's not welcome. Most shit isn't as scary as they pretend to be, and she doesn't seem to be out for your blood or anything.
I do talk to it. I've had telepathic communication with it the moment it revealed itself about a month into my weed binge. On Syrian Rue, I could vividly hear her mocking me. This is with the mind-voice method, if you have experience with that. She contradicts herself and says sweet and encouraging things, and only promises to stop the scary shit if I quit some other drug addictions, which I am tapering off of. She will be tested for her true nature at that point, but to me, she seems like a negative spirit. I met her in an old part of a forest in an old neighborhood. In particular, when I met her, my attention was immediately pulled towards a group of trees. From that moment I assumed she was a dryad, but her visual reveal confirmed to me that it was something that followed me since childhood. I should add, when I was about 12, and even younger, I would hear footsteps on my carpet. I'd ignore it thinking I was imagining things though. Make your boundaries clear. She tickles my fucking asshole and has me constantly thinking I'm going to get ass raped, despite constantly telling her to fucking stop, makes me think it's a dude. Unfortunately, I was in a period of major denial, thinking she wasn't negative. I've done energy work with her on my third eye and my throat chakra. I can feel her move around my pineal gland. I've tried confirming her intentions with tarot, and I've had results that say she's well-intentioned and emotionally attached to me, but her threatening demeanor says otherwise. Sucks being a blind dumbass.
Oh shit, normally people who complain about such things are normies in denial who don't know what step to take first. If you're already acquainted and communicating, then I don't see your problem. I'd still recommend doing things formally and friendly, just once, just to avoid any offense, Desu. But if you aren't worried about fucking over what you have, lay down the law, tell her straight up you only welcome benevolent entities into your life, and if she's not going to be at the very least neutral and harmless, she needs to leave you alone. You're looking for helpful friends and allies and refuse to partner with anyone who's not 100% aiding you, etc. But TBF, she doesn't sound like she's out to get you despite fucking with you like a little trickster. Tickles my fucking asshole. I mean, just because it presents as a little girl doesn't mean it is one. Just tell her she's not welcome to your loosh like that.
Not so much a spooky story. I mean, spooky stuff happened in it. Late 90s grandparents' house is haunted. Reading Mario comic book in basement because Banjo-Kazooie strategy guide was borrowed by Mexican kid. And never returned. Light in basement starts turning off and on, as in will quickly turn off then back on. Can hear the switch being flicked. Ain't shit at the door, can see the switch flicking. Me, knock that shit off. Was a little shit at the age of 9 who swore like a sailor to sound cool. It stops. I don't know /x/ I feel like I offended the spook, and whatever it was just trying to get attention / have fun.
I'll bite. Not really that spooky though. I was around 15 years old. Annual family trip to New Orleans. We're from Texas, but we like it there. Plus Harrah's is way nicer than the Indian casinos across the Red River. Take a walk down the French Quarter. Mom and sister decide to look around in one of the tourist trap shops to go to the bathroom. Me and my dad stay outside, just talking. Out of the corner of our eye, we see what looks to be some kind of businessman. Full suit, slacks, tie, sunglasses, etc., bald-headed and white too. Very easy to pick out of a crowd. Walks by us, we don't think much of it despite a few jokes about if he's headed to a bar. 1 minute later, I shit you not, me and my dad see the exact same dude, walking the exact same direction. Me and my dad are both taken aback, as there is no way he made the block that fast. Bald-headed guy walks away. Mom and sister come out of thrift shop. Me and my dad relate the story to them. We end up just figuring it was a glitch in the Matrix or something like that. Me and my dad still talk about this. It was really fucking weird. Still love Nola though.
Be like 22. Terribly depressed. Living in mom's basement. Neat because of course I am. Abusing DPH to sleep because my dreams are preferable to my waking existence. Never in doses high enough to robotrip. Start having frequent nightmares. I wake up feeling exhausted every time. This continues for months. One night I wake up flat on my back. There's someone in my room. They're standing at the foot of my bed. My eyesight is pretty shit, combined with the poor lighting, so I can't make out fine details. This humanoid being appears to be gray, about 5 feet tall, and either covered in matte leathery skin or it's made of smoke. I stared this thing in its face while lying in bed, not fully comprehending the situation. Here's where things get fuzzy. I knew that this thing wasn't supposed to be here, so I start to say you aren't supposed to be here. As soon as the thought is fully formed in my mind, before I've had a chance to say it aloud, the entity jerks forward. It jabs its left arm, tentacle? Appendage? Into my right side, right between my ribs. I feel no pain, but I feel a strange sensation that horrifies me. I sit up reflexively. The entity is gone. Told my mom about it in the morning. She told me it was demonic. I brush it off as sleep paralysis because at the time I was a staunch materialist. Even though I didn't feel paralyzed at any point. Even though I've never had sleep paralysis before or since. Stopped taking DPH after that. Had a dull ache in that spot between my ribs consistently whenever I tried to meditate for years afterward. That's the only story I got. I'm 28 now.
Chinese girl told me a family story. In the last century during China's Great Leap Forward, many people were relocated from urban areas to rural ones to encourage farming or something, I don't remember exactly. So this girl's grandparents were moved from their hometown to this farmland out in the middle of nowhere that they were expected to work. The house was small, with a large window facing the wilderness. They made it their home and met their closest neighbors, a family some miles down the road. They were a young couple with a young boy and were very kind and courteous to their new neighbors. Unfortunately, after a few seasons, the boy had fallen ill and died. His parents were absolutely devastated. Some time passed and a massive typhoon came through. The girl's grandparents are hunkered down in their little farmhouse, waiting out the storm, praying to God the typhoon doesn't just carry them away. It's pitch black outside and all that can be heard is the roaring storm, unrelentingly thrashing their humble home. Then a bolt of lightning came that lit up the entire landscape. For just a moment, in that flash of light, the grandparents saw the dead neighbor boy standing against their large window. Just inches away he stooped facing them, with black, dead eyes looking directly at them. Then darkness. And another flash. And all that lay outside was the wilderness beyond the glass. Fucked up story.
I was a ghost once. Be me, 12 yo. We lived on a farm. My favorite hobby was hiking in the woods. All the woods around there were owned by someone, since the government requires 20% of the land to be native forest. I got bored of just walking around our patch of land, so I began to hike around the neighbors. Thing is, I was invading, and did not tell anyone. Once I was on a piece that I really liked. The treetops were really dense, so it was really dark and nothing new was growing. Thick old vines were everywhere. Overall, really spooky. I am going back home when I hear a family moving and talking through the forest, dad, mom, a small boy and girl. The kids are running, playing and screaming, and the parents are having a conversation. They are between me and my way home, so I decide to just circle them. They change directions and come directly at me. The kids are now running right to where I am. Panic.jpg. They don't know me, they will think I am a thief, a poacher, or something else bad. I might get shot, they might call the cops, or even worse, I will have to talk to strangers. I look around for a place to hide, but now any running or sudden moves will alert them faster. As I look around, I see that this place looks really haunted. It was dark despite the clear sun on top of the trees. I am carrying a stick, so I began to limp, using the stick as support. Threw my hair over my face, and made a face of pure agony and pain. Pretend I couldn't see or hear them. Kids run towards my direction, and stop about 10 meters away, as they go quiet. They run back to the parents, and whisper something to the mom. Mom went quiet, Dad keeps talking by himself for a good 10 seconds. She gives a warning, trying to get the husband's attention, with pure fear in her voice. There is a boy there. Look. They stay quiet, I keep my act, walking like that for almost 1 kilometer. No one is following me, so I ran back home and never went there again.
Since I've slept a lot with my door open when I was home alone, I think I'll tell a story of a time where I hallucinated. Be me, around 4 a.m. wake up feeling dizzy and sweating. Stare at my open door and notice something. 3 faces staring at me. Smiling, glowing eyes. Panic, but I can't scream. Turn to the other side of my bed facing the wall. Cover my head with my blanket. It was summer, so my blanket is thin and not thick enough to protect me. I manage to calm myself down, but I don't face towards the door until I fall asleep again. Luckily I did fall asleep. Talk to my cat the next day about what I saw. Realize it's pointless talking to a cat. Eat breakfast.
Recent adventure, spending a week in an 1800s house with friends. Very old house, some rooms restored/original. We casually joke it's probably haunted just because of age alone. Few days pass, nothing out of the ordinary. Notice that we've been latently avoiding one of the rooms, central to the house, and joke it doesn't exist. First spooky thing. Day 4 rolls around, I'm laying on the couch waiting for the coffee to kick in. A smoky shape walks up the main stairs, visible from the couch. Realize it made no noise on these otherwise loud stairs. Turn and see everyone else accounted for on their phones in the other room. Later. One of the guys produces a black light from his trunk. Play with it in the house, nothing strange. Take it to the room that doesn't exist. Pick related. It's a child's sized bloody handprint on the black wooden floor, long since resealed over. Adjacent to the handprint is a huge cutout for an air return, not original or matching style to the house. There was an older, more original one just outside. Finally. Later that night, setting up for a movie on the basement TV. A displayed, metal poster held by a magnet, jumps off the wall, startling the 4 of us. Others mentioned weird shit/being unsettled. This is just what I saw. It was real weird. The room I stayed in only had mirrors as wall art.
This happened to me sometime in 2017. Be me. Working at grocery store, closing cashier shift. Night going normally, nothing out of the ordinary. 11 p.m. comes around, manager and I go to punch out, we're the only 2 people in the store. Talking and joking as usual when clocking out in break room. We both hear a loud crashing sound, like a bunch of pots and pans fell off the wall. Opposite side of break room wall was the deli. Manager and I look at each other a bit unnerved. We walk around to the deli, and look. Nothing out of place, last deli clerk left an hour prior. We check bakery, nothing out of place there either. Left that night kind of baffled. Another day I spoke to a different manager about the experience, and she believed me and had her own experience in the store. Said she was walking in the back room, and a clipboard hanging on the wall flew off behind her while she was the only one in the room. Store isn't even that old. Was built in the 90s.
In summer 2018 my partner and I had an somewhat interesting experience whilst driving north on Phantom Canyon Road from Florence, CO to Cripple Creek, CO. Be us, driving north through Phantom Canyon on a typical dry sunny day. Drive goes normally, nothing out of the ordinary. When we get to Cripple Creek, we get out and notice on the hood of the car, just above the passenger side headlight there is what looks like a dirty handprint that hadn't been there before. Then for some reason I freak out that my keys are missing, look around the car, can't find them. We go to a local donut shop for a snack, then head back to the car. We drive back home to Denver, rain washes away the handprint. Somehow find my keys in an obvious place and kind of forget why I freaked out earlier. Felt like my memory was a bit off from the day. Don't recall any missing time, but I wasn't really paying much attention to how long the trip took through the canyon. Nothing else happened. Learned later that the reason behind it being called Phantom Canyon was from the old Fawn CC Railroad, where the train crews would see the ghost of a recently executed prisoner along the line and in a canyon.
Here's a story not around me, but Granddad. Be Granddad, mid-1980s or so. Be friends with some local Freemasons. These Freemasons had some sort of rings they earned, something Freemason stupid shit Ike. Granddad is Catholic, refuses to wear any of the rings. Friends egg him on, bet him that nothing is gonna happen, put $20 on the line. Granddad caves, puts it on, has to wear it for at least one day or so to show that Therese nothing to fear. Puts it on, leaves for home. On the way home in the station wagon, his stomach is feeling like it's completely gone from his nerves. Still keeps the ring on. About 10 minutes away from home he sees a storm brewing. Pedal.the-metal.mp4. Storm stays with him, lightning hits the trees by the road, country road so they're a dime a dozen. Pull into driveway, jump out of the car and throw the ring off onto the road. Storm's gone. Paranormalreflecopter.png. Swore that the ring was to blame until his death. Did not like the story being brought up, either was nervous or embarrassed about it. Ring is returned to the friend, they never believe him about the storm but they don't make him cough up the 20. He never associates with anything directly Freemason again. Even though it was returned, wish I could have seen/wore it to see if I would get spooked. Would have been neat.
Working in National Park in Ireland. 5 years ago. Mostly made clean up rubbish on main trails. Sometimes made fix info signs and gates etc. comfy as fuck for most of the time. One day made fix an information sign about 5 kilometers into a steep trail. Pissed off as I was hungover from beers the night before. My own fault I guess, fresh air and walk actually felt good though. As I'm fixing the sign man approaches me. Can hear the footsteps but I don't turn around as I'm mid-job. Asks me in this deep monotone voice where the toilets are. WTF, why would he ask this up a mountain? Turn around and he's facing away from me for some reason. Standing completely upright like he's in a military parade or something. About 6.5 feet tall but skinny as fuck. Tell him the toilets are back at the visitor center down the trail. Says thanks and walk off. Sounds like really old version of voice to text when he's saying that. Turn around, get back to the job. Notice I heard no footsteps. Turn around and cannot see the man at all. Assume he walked into the bushes or something to do a piss. Don't see him at all on the way back down.